Adrian had fallen for the scholarship girl I'd bankrolled. She was the famous rags to riches campus beauty everyone applauded, poor, gifted, unstoppable. Adrian mailed me every cent I'd ever given her, plus interest. His reason: no one gets to humiliate her with money. Not even you. I neither agreed nor argued. Years later, Adrian and I faced off across a negotiation table. Mid-session break. He flicked a black titanium card at the former inspiration queen. That enough? Stop interrupting my work, go shopping or something. Before we continue, please subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're listening. When does a man finally bury the white moon he chased in vain? By the time I saw Adrian again, the table was already a battlefield of open bullets and hidden knives. The boyish softness was gone, years of boardroom knife fights had carved faint, sleeved shadows beneath his eyes. He'd lost weight too. Serena, after all this time, didn't expect to run into you here. You haven't changed. Too intimate for ex-lovers who might bankrupt each other before lunch. I smiled diplomatically. Ellis is joking. In business it's Ms. Vance. I hadn't come for small talk. I'm Serena, lead negotiator for Vance Holdings, and my only job today is to wipe Adrian off the map and walk away with a bigger slice of the profit margin for my family's company. Adrian tried the nostalgia card. When it didn't land, he shifted into combat gear. Minutes ticked by, offers and counteroffers tightening like a garrote, neither of us yielding. Just as the air began to spark, someone tapped on the boardroom door. A fragile girl peeked in, voice trembling. Adrian, I brought you a bento box. Casey. I looked away without seeming to. I'd paid her tuition once. Later events weren't entirely her fault, but I still never wanted to see her again. Adrian's brows slammed together. He didn't even speak to Casey. Who let her in? He snapped at his assistant. The assistant whispered, Jordan, you said Miss Lynn was to be admitted immediately. Are you blind? We're in a boardroom. Afraid he'd explode, Casey caught his hand. Don't be mad, it's my fault. Don't blame them. He pulled a black titanium card from inside his jacket and flung it in her face. Plenty there. Stop bothering me while I'm working, go shop. Casey stood frozen, eyes welling. I stared, stunned. The man in front of me felt like a stranger. How ironic, this was the same man who once shielded her and told me, no one insults her with money. So, Adrian, what exactly are you doing now? Tears shimmered in Casey's eyes, her gaze at me mixed shame and panic. The white designer dress fit, yet on her it looked borrowed, wrong. She opened her mouth toward me several times, finally lowered her head, placed the card and the bento box in front of Adrian, and walked out. I hadn't meant to care, but her exit made me frown. Casey used to be different. The first time I met her she was awkward too, an oversized, faded shirt drooping to her knees, palms crossed with the stubborn black soil of part-time garden jobs. Back then she avoided my gaze, but when she did look up, a bright flame danced in her eyes, shouting that she would wrestle fate to the ground, not fold into the meekness she was showing now. Adrian pocketed the black card and shoved the bento box aside. Throw it out. The assistant nodded and complied. Adrian dipped his head in apology. Sorry you had to witness that farce. I said nothing, only gestured for him to return to business. He misread me, sighing. I reap what I sowed. I handled everything badly back then. That was a long time ago, I said. Let's pick the meeting back up. But you still blame me, don't you? We were good, we were supposed to marry right after graduation. I've regretted it every day since. I cut him off. I'm not here for ancient history. Vance is ready to negotiate, Sterling apparently isn't. Let's reschedule. I stood. He reached instinctively, then let his hand drop, cheeks burning. I'll expect professional courtesy next time. I left. He no longer had the right to touch me. The instant I slid into the back seat, Whitney, my driver secretary assistant BFF, locked her X-ray gossip eyes on me. Seeing my face, her curiosity ignited. Talks Crater? I opened my laptop without expression. Drive. Adrian didn't go all lovesick? I watched little Casey run in sobbing and figured you'd nuked him. Whitney's perfect, except for her nonstop commentary. I came for numbers, not a soap opera. If Vance swallows Sterling tomorrow, that's victory. Anything less is trivia. You really only discussed EBITDA? She pouted and hit the gas. Boring. I was sure sparks would fly. She tossed over her shoulder, couldn't help noticing how hard you once fell for him. I flinched, eyes drifting to the plane trees lining Commonwealth Boulevard, their gold leaves already singed, ready to drop at the first cold breath. Yeah, once upon a time I'd loved him that much. Adrian and I met in college, but I'd known his name long before. Our families moved in similar circles, cordial, not close, always comparing portfolios. He was the mythical other kid parents invoke, brilliant, polite, flawless. So when I finally met him, my feelings tangled. Half of me wanted to beat him at everything, prove I was better. The other half, thanks to constant parental PR, worshipped him like some unreachable benchmark. We didn't click. We clashed. I entered every contest he signed up for, chased every award he touched. Eventually even I had to admit he was good. Admitting he was better? Never. Rowan I latched onto him like superglue, determined to outscore him at least once. He seemed to enjoy finally meeting someone who could keep up. Falling for each other felt inevitable, same orbit, matching pedigrees. Soon we were dating, and before long we'd met each other's parents. Everyone assumed we'd marry the minute we graduated. Then Casey appeared. Influenced by my father, I'd sponsored dozens of students from the Appalachians, and Casey was one of them. She was only a year younger than me. When I heard she'd been accepted to my university, I was thrilled. I knew the effort she'd had to expend was 100 times greater than mine. So I covered her full tuition, showed her around the city, even had wardrobes and daily necessities delivered to her dorm. Because of me, Adrian and Casey kept running into each other. But I never imagined the day Adrian would step in front of her, face contorted with disgust, and say, "I won't let anyone humiliate her with money." That was when I learned that everything I'd done, introducing her to the city, to a higher stratum, bankrolling her life, struck her as flaunting and insulting. Tears streaming, she spat, "Do you know how much I hate this? You were born with all of it, while I have to grovel in gratitude for the crumbs you drop. You kept me like a pet, your little sidekick, must have felt great. I work harder than anyone, yet I'm always inferior." I wonder what she'd have thought had she known how Adrian would treat her later. I exhaled, pulling myself from the memory, and decided the aborted negotiation hadn't been a total loss. 3 years abroad, I'd carried resentment for Adrian, now I was done. I could finally wipe away the moonlight I myself had daubed on him and see every pitted ugliness beneath. A man like that never deserved my love. Wasting another second on him would be a second too many. These past years, father has remained the titular head of Vance Holdings, but I run every lever. Lately the workload is crushing, even on 3 hours of sleep I barely keep up. Whitney hustled the hiring along, and a new assistant materialized fast. Fresh out of college, Connor is soft-featured, ivory-skinned, black-rimmed spectacles perched on his nose. He slicks his hair into an adult cut, yet the ink of campus life still clings to him. He learns faster than I expected. Morning onboarding, afternoon full throttle. Ms. Vance, Sterling Group emailed asking for a meeting next Tuesday. I nod. Too big a contract to delegate, I'll handle it myself. Whitney waggles her brows. Think Adrian's stalling on the contract just to see you more? I checked, he and Casey still aren't married, the family's against it, and their relationship is imploding. Somebody even heard him drunk, sobbing to his brother that he never should have let you go. Without looking up from my monitor I frown at her. Clearly you're underutilized. Rowan, I wave a magnanimous hand and bury her in busy work. She finally sulks away. I sense eyes on me and lift my gaze to Connor's curious stare. Warning bells ring. Do not pick up Whitney's gossip habit, I caution. Yes, understood. He drops his head, ears flaming. Shy? I hardly said a thing. Kids these days, paper-thin skin. Negotiation day arrives. I take Connor to Sterling Tower, but Adrian never shows. Ms. Vance, I've long admired your reputation, says the man before me, 7/10 Adrian's mirror. It takes a second. Julian, the younger Sterling, I'd met him once at a family dinner years ago. Years pass, yet you grow more stunning, he adds, empty pleasantries, apparently hereditary. We start. I brought Connor for exposure, I don't expect miracles. Yet the talks glide, almost eerie, until Julian grandly concedes 30% of the profit margin. He watches me, expectant. I slide the contract over. No objections. Sign. A gift this large only a fool would refuse. He arches a brow. I handed you a fortune. A thank you wouldn't kill you, Jamie, I say, deadpan. Sign now? Julian opens his mouth, closes it, signs. He studies me, then bursts into laughter and extends his hand. Pleasure doing business. His gaze burns with ulterior heat, never a good omen. Before I can react, Connor clamps Julian's hand, squeezing until Julian winces. Pleasure, Connor repeats, face shield high. I shake my head, rookie still needs seasoning. Back at headquarters, an awkward hush lingers. Connor keeps quiet while I process the new deal. When everything's filed, I speak. Know what you did wrong? His shoulders snap straight. Sorry, Ms. Vance. I shouldn't have shaken hands with Sterling's head unasked. That's not the point. An assistant does bail me out, including shielding me from partners with wandering agendas. Your mistake was telegraphing emotion, acting rash, moving before thinking. In this arena one tug unravels the whole net, finesse matters. You're green, so slack is given. No pay doc, this time. I glance at him. But forget your monthly bonus. Silence drops like a curtain. Whitney ventures, he's still interning, he doesn't get bonuses. Right. Debited against future bonuses, then. She flips me a sardonic thumbs up. Queen of skinflints. Connor stares at his shoes. I add, as my assistant you'll helm pieces of Vance Holdings someday. If you're with a female colleague and slime oozes over, step in first. Vance does not peddle its people, male or female, for contracts. Here, Whitney says, this time sincere. She pats Connor's shoulder. And watch yourself, pretty boy, predators come in both genders. I almost laugh, until a blade twists through my gut. Whitney reads my face instantly. Gastritis again? I'll fetch your pills. No need. I forced the words through my clenched teeth. Take me straight to Eastbrook. I've always thought gastroenteritis is like a time bomb. With the 4 dripping into my arm, I made a miserable face and asked the nurse if she could prescribe something so I could go back to work. She scolded me outright, lecturing me for not caring about my body. Just then, Whitney slipped in like a thief, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Guess who I just saw? Adrian. No wonder he skipped the negotiation, I muttered, puzzled. What's he doing at Eastbrook? Did he finally get cancer? Whitney's expression turned even more mysterious. I saw him head to the OBGYN ward with Casey. I froze. Casey's pregnant? Well, it can't be Adrian who's expecting. Speak of the devil. The door swung open and Adrian strode in. One look at me in the hospital bed and panic flooded his face. Serena? What happened? Are you okay? Whitney rolled her eyes. Calm down, she's not dying, don't look so excited. I spotted your assistant and thought she looked familiar, so I followed her. Sure enough, it's you. What's wrong? You're pale as paper, you've lost so much weight. Whitney kept lobbing verbal grenades. It's gastroenteritis, but the way you describe it sounds more like leukemia. I glared at Whitney, wordlessly blaming her for letting him tail her all the way here. She took the hint and shut up. Ellis, no need for concern, this is an old issue. Incidentally, the Vance Sterling cooperation contract is signed. I suggest you read it. He seemed to filter out my second sentence entirely. Eyes vacant, he murmured, old issue? You never had these problems when we were together. It's me. I hurt you that badly, I scrunched my brow, finally losing patience. Ellis, it's my stomach, not my heart. Please stop nauseating me or I'll actually throw up. She is, in fact, lovesick, Whitney added, unable to resist. But Jordan, let's not flatter ourselves, her true love is money. The gastroenteritis is pure overtime damage. I was about to order them out when I caught sight of Casey in the doorway, one hand cradling her belly, lower lip caught between her teeth, eyes glistening. Adrian. The sugary call made Adrian stiffen. He turned slowly, tone cold though not quite scolding. Why did you follow me? I told you to wait where you were. Casey didn't answer, she simply kept one hand on her bump and burned her gaze into me. After a long stare off, I spoke first. Congratulations. Casey lowered her head and whispered, Adrian promised we'll get married as soon as I give birth. My tone stayed flat. Then congrats again. What are you saying that for? Adrian snapped at Casey, then looked as if he wanted to add something to me, but the words stuck. Whitney rose cheerfully to show them out. If there's nothing else, our CEO needs rest. Thank you both for visiting, Jordan, Mrs. Sterling, you may go. The Mrs. Sterling was perfectly timed. Casey silently tugged Adrian's hand. He said nothing, only kept looking back at me as he left. Even then, his eyes flicked toward me every other second. I gave a soft laugh. Funny how I never noticed before that Adrian likes to keep one hand on the bowl while eyeing the pot. The doctor said this flare-up was severe. If I wasn't careful it could turn into ulcers or even perforation, so I had to stay for observation. I sent Whitney back to the office. Once Connor arrived with my laptop, he stayed to work with me. Much as I wanted a few days off, the ink was still wet on the Sterling contract and handoff details needed sorting. That evening, after a video call, I rubbed my temples and was about to send Connor home when I realized he'd fallen asleep slumped over the foot of my bed. He'd been overloaded lately, sprinting between the office and Eastbrook. No wonder he was exhausted. His skin was fair, and sleep lent it a faint pink. A few strands of usually perfect hair had fallen onto his forehead, making him look like a kid napping on a classroom desk. Seeing the red marks his glasses left on his nose, I reached to take them off, but the moment my fingers touched the frame his eyes flew open. We stared at each other, his face flushed crimson in an instant. The air turned intimate, and my own cheeks burned. After a beat, I managed, "Ahem, you should change your hairstyle. The slicked back look ages you, it doesn't suit you." What else could I say? So Connor really did change his hairstyle. Soft texture, a 30-70 part, paired with that refined pale face, downright delectable. He also traded the clunky black frames for slim gold-rimmed spectacles. Objectively speaking, the new cut and gold glasses fit him perfectly, giving off an aloof, almost ascetic vibe. I was still admiring the makeover when someone tapped on the door. Before I could say come in, Julian entered hugging a huge armful of scarlet roses. "Miss Vance, I heard you were ill." He thrust the flowers at Connor and stepped to my bedside. I was so worried I rushed right over. "Who brings red roses to a patient?" I said nothing, only regarded him in silence. Connor opened his mouth, I silenced him with a look, and he reluctantly set the bouquet on the floor. Julian's skin is thick, but apparently not thick enough. After babbling for a while he lost steam, coughed, and finally switched to business mode. "Of course, I also came to inform you of something." His face turned grave. "Casey is pregnant." Silence. "Tonight's Cambridge." Seeing no reaction, he grew more awkward. "You already knew?" "Ellis, if you've come only to deliver that news, rest assured I've heard it and congratulated her in person. When the reception rolls around, Vance Holdings' cash gift will arrive by courier. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to rest." Julian's smile vanished. "Then let me get to the point. I'm here to propose a partnership. Any interest in joining me to bring Adrian down?" Ever since Julian first showed interest, I knew the target wasn't me. Sure enough, the dringer's heart is not in the cup. To his proposal I replied, "I have zero interest." Julian's face tightened. "Why not? Allow me to ask you, Ellis, what possible profit is there for me in meddling with your family civil war? I'm a businesswoman, I don't get out of bed for nothing. If he wants to use me as his gun, he'd better make the powder worth my while. Don't you want to see Adrian ruined? Don't you hate him for abandoning you?" I laughed softly. Julian clearly doesn't know me at all. Those old stories mean nothing to me now. He underestimates me. Still not interested. But thank you, Ellis, for signing that contract yesterday. The Sterling brothers' feud is strictly a Sterling family matter. He didn't seem to expect me to say that. A flicker of something strange crossed Julian's face. After a long moment, he looked at me and actually smiled. "You're right, Adrian's not worth Miss Vance's time." That was refreshingly honest. When Julian's eyes warmed with open admiration, Connor stepped forward and blocked his view of me. "Miss Vance needs to rest. Mr. Sterling, please leave." Nice. The kid was making executive decisions again. Still, I couldn't summon even a scrap of irritation. Truth was, every last Sterling got on my nerves. Julian took the hint and left, but Connor leaned in, curious. "Serena, why didn't you help Julian? He just signed the contract with us." I curved my lips, watching Julian's retreating back. "Let the snipe and the clam fight, the fisherman profits." The fiercer the Sterling brothers' civil war, the more openings Vance, nearly their equal, would have. Sterling gossip traveled fast. Whitney scooped it up within hours. The Sterlings are in open revolt. Those two have been sniping for years, but now it's bare knuckle. Most shareholders used to line up behind Adrian, but somehow Julian poached more than half. The board's squeezing him, and Adrian's coming apart at the seams. My expression tightened. Is our partnership affected? Not yet, but if this escalates, no guarantees. I filed it away, contingency plans would be needed. Almost 2 weeks of convalescence later, I was finally discharged. In that fortnight, Connor had leveled up so fast he was practically a new hire with cheat codes. I cut his internship short and put him on payroll effective immediately. The bonus I'd deferred? We'd start clawing it back from this month's check. Over the next 5 months, Connor ran on rocket fuel. His efficiency sometimes outpaced mine. For once, I even felt idle. Whitney suggested we drive out, hike a little, visit a mountain temple, clear the noise. I agreed, my head needed white space. The ridge views were gorgeous, but the second we stepped onto the temple courtyard, Whitney seized my wrist and yanked me behind a wall. Look. I followed her stare and froze. Casey, alone, 5-month baby bump protruding, face haggard, shuffled toward the prayer hall. Internet says the fertility bodhisattva here is miracle level. She's here to special order a boy, Whitney whisper fired. Word as the old matriarch loosened the gate, provided the fetus has a Y chromosome. Same Eleanor Sterling, same scorecard. Couple years ago Adrian adored her, fought the family over her. Now he can't stand the sight of her, all she's got left is that belly. Funny thing, they dated forever, no ring, no kid. The minute he falls out of love, why keep her dangling? I snorted. Face. He dumped me in righteous tones, claimed her soul shimmered. Dump her now, he's slapping his own cheek. To most men, face is practically another anatomy part. Whitney's verdict, wants the cake, wants to stay on a diet too. While we talked, Casey disappeared into the fertility shrine. Whitney, who called superstition antiquated, dragged me to the wealth god temple. If you're begging invisible entities, at least ask for money. We'd barely stepped out when Casey appeared, eyes locked on us, approaching one timid foot at a time. Serena, she murmured, head down. I've wanted to talk, but, no chance. I folded my arms, rationing my words. I need to apologize. What I said back then, mostly spite, though maybe I half believed it. I took your charity, I had no right to complain. I know you don't want conversation, but please, let me have Adrian. You're surrounded by brilliant men. Without him, I have nothing. I gave a slow clap, voice iced. Such ambition. You gnawed your way out of the Appalachians so you wouldn't spend life birthing babies in a mountain village, only to marry rich and spend life birthing babies. Inspirational. Color drained from her face, she bit her lip, whispering, I'm not you. I don't have choices. This is the best exit I could find. Knives were out, I pressed harder. You graduated top of our class, fielded offers before commencement. Yet the corner office career track scared you more than gold digging? Your talent was obvious, your grind documented. You said you lacked polish and contacts, so I paraded you through every circle I had. You were outpacing half the city on your own. Sure, pedigree is destiny if you surrender. But if you're surrendering, why crawl out of the hills? Why not rot in the factory? Once you marry in, they'll still treat you like the help. Remember why you left those mountains? Confession and panic swirled in her eyes, tears welled, knuckles white on her cotton hem. Whitney hissed, easy, she's pregnant. You scold her into a miscarriage, the tabloids will frame you. Suddenly Casey lost control, sobbing, I don't know how it got here, I just didn't want people looking down on me. Adrian used to say I was the world's rarest jewel, now even he, words failed, only broken breaths remained. I waited until the crying ebbed. Do you remember the first day of college? What I told you, people will despise you for 1,000 reasons, ignore them. Respect isn't begged, it's earned. You heard none of it. I signaled Whitney, we walked away. I thought the drama was shelved. Then the Sterlings gift-wrapped a fresh scandal. At the press conference for our new project, after my presentation, Dad officially announced my promotion to CEO of Vance Holdings. Reporters' eyeballs outsparkled their own flashbulbs. Out of nowhere Adrian vaulted on stage, dropped to one knee, brandishing a diamond the size of a tollbooth coin. Eyes swollen crimson, he emitted words that made me want to dial a psychiatrist on his behalf. Serena, let Casey pop the kid out and you raise it. I'll cut her off. Let's get back together, get married, deal? If you say no, I'll have her abort tomorrow. Serena, I was wrong. I can't live without you. I nearly laughed myself lightheaded. He can't do this without me. He's finally realized that Casey will never be the right-hand woman he needs in the boardroom. Only I, the sole heir of Vance, can deliver the kind of profit margin he craves. The reporters were losing their minds. Business gossip never pays as well as celebrity dirt. Security, get this man off the stage and send him to a psychiatric facility for a full evaluation. As the journalists surged forward and surrounded me, I had Adrian hauled away without hesitation, but I filed the debt away in my mental ledger. Avery later, I walked into the Sterling estate again. The decor hadn't changed a cushion, yet my agenda had shifted from meet the parents to demand answers. I sat perfectly upright, Whitney on my left and Connor on my right. Old Mr. Sterling had just finished roaring. Adrian knelt on the carpet, a crown prince who'd never been told no. Boys raised on applause seldom swallow failure gracefully, so he'd snapped, lost every shred of composure. Julian lounged nearby, barely hiding a smirk. Casey, 5 months a baby bump swelling her dress, stood without a chair, eyes wet as she stared at Adrian. In this suffocating atmosphere, Mrs. Sterling greeted me with a hostess smile bright enough to crack porcelain. No tea, thank you, I cut in. You're both elders, so I'd prefer not to speak harshly. But Adrian didn't merely harass me, he humiliated the entire Vance family in front of every camera in Eastbrook. The Sterlings owe us an accounting. Oh dear, look how messy this has become. Mrs. Sterling's smile stayed stapled in place. Rest assured, Serena, I watched you grow up. I won't let that little brute off the hook. He'll shoulder responsibility and compensate you tenfold. The more she chirped, the colder I felt. Still beaming, she pivoted to marriage talk. Serena, darling, the story's already everywhere. A young woman's reputation is fragile. Who'll marry you after this? You and Adrian only had a tiny misunderstanding. Why not just? Whitney's face contorted. She couldn't interrupt outright, so she gushed in mock awe. Such opulent decor, classic from floor to ceiling. Connor caught the cue. Feels like the Qing dynasty never quite surrendered in here. Mrs. Sterling's smile collapsed. She looked constipated and speechless. I turned to Theodore Sterling. Is that your stance as well? His expression was thunderous. He knew this mess wouldn't rinse off with pleasantries. After weighing his options, he agreed to transfer a prime land parcel to Vance. I ran the numbers in my head, nodded with satisfaction. In that case, I'll take my leave. A word of advice, talent matters, but so does character. I meant to exit with that zinger and lead the Sterlings to their sewage. Instead, Adrian lunged, grabbing at my ankles. Don't go. I was wrong, so wrong. I thought I loved Casey's innocence and grit, but the gap between us is a canyon. She'll never be my equal. I refused to marry her, to spend my life with some hill country nobody. Emery. I almost retched remembering I once made this man my goal, and my lover. Connor hauled the hysterical Adrian off me. Let's go, Ms. Vance. I exhaled. Plenty of contracts waiting on my desk. Then Casey swayed and hit the floor, blood pooling beneath her. Casey miscarried. I didn't follow the ambulance. Connor faked a call about a boardroom crisis and dragged me back to the office. Whitney, representing Vance, rode to the hospital, purely for decorum, though I suspect for gossip too. She returned wearing a poker face of delicious secrets, yanking me into my office. The Sterlings are carved from ice. That baby was their own flesh and blood, yet not a single Sterling showed up, just some clueless chauffeur. I ran around signing admission papers myself. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Adrian didn't go? His own child? Total scumbag. The baby. Whitney shook her head grimly. Doctors said Casey's stress-stunted development, the fall finished it. I had no words for Casey's fate. When she woke up, she sobbed that she'd messed up and couldn't face you. She's going back to the Appalachians to teach after discharge, and she asked me to apologize. I sighed, ambushed by a gust of complicated feeling. Also, the Sterlings are calling the psychiatric facility. Adrian's unraveling. Looks like Julian's coup is complete. I nodded. From the day Adrian chose Casey, he'd signed his own exile. After that, Adrian and Casey vanished from my life, but Julian started haunting my office. Finally, I snapped. What do you want? He gazed at me with soap opera intensity. You probably never noticed, but I fell for you the first time I saw you. Back then you were my brother's girlfriend, maybe my future sister-in-law. Now there's nothing between us. All my life, the best toys were Adrian's, but the game has changed. I stared long enough to choose diplomacy over laughter. Book yourself the same psych eval. I'm starting to think insanity is hereditary in your family. Julian blinked, wrong-footed. I've already won. Sterling is mine. Say the word and it's yours too. You're mistaking me for a trophy, I interrupted. I'm not a prize for brothers to split, I'm a player. And I do want Sterling. I wiggled my fingers in his face. 5 years. I'll swallow you whole. Thanks for the Civil War, it gave me the opening. I spun on my heel, still laughing, Connor waiting by the elevator. Back to work, I said. In the car I glanced sideways. So the heir to Wright Enterprises gave up a gilded life to fetch my coffee. How's the peasant experiment going? Connor had been raised abroad, shielded by low-key parents, only his polish had betrayed him. He flushed scarlet, too flustered to meet my eyes. Young love is spring air, impossible to hide. I chuckled softly. I hear Chairman Wright's back in town. Care to discuss some deep cooperation between Wright and Vance? Romance is sweet, but empire tastes better. Thanks for listening. On a 1 to 10 scale, how would you rate today's story? If you enjoyed it, like and share. We'd love to read your comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next episode.
On our wedding anniversary, my husband Julian's mistress sent me a bedroom selfie from the Grand. In the shot she cuddled against his sleeping chest, her makeup flawless, her stare pure. The caption read, "Big sis, Julian says he loves you most when you wear long dresses like an angel, but guess what? He loves me even more when I rip that dress off you." I studied the image until my fingertips tingled, then typed a single reply. 20 minutes later I'd pulled every string I had and harvested her parents' entire file from their county seat hometown. Her father, principal, was a vice principal campaigning for the top job. Her mother, Mrs. Shaw, the neighborhood's star volunteer who never tired of bragging what a success her daughter had become. I'm a neurosurgeon. My gift is threading a path through a jungle of nerves until I find the one fiber that, with the flick of a blade, paralyzes the whole limb. I zipped the original photo together with the lease Julian signed for her Riverside condo and every credit card statement for the luxury goods he'd bought her, and I emailed the bundle to the one man who values face more than life itself. Before we go any further, please subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're listening. My phone buzzed while I was peeling off scrubs outside the OR. I had just closed an 8-hour aneurysm clipping. My fingers still carried the ghost of the microforceps. On the screen glowed that filthy selfie. Ava, the intern at Julian's firm who always greeted me with a shy hi, Serena, had posed with precision, Julian's sleeping profile in perfect focus, her bare shoulder sporting fresh crimson streaks. The shredded dress was the one I'd picked out for him last month. He'd laughed and said I'd look beautiful in anything. So he'd bought it for her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even breathing hard. My exhausted brain booted into cooldown mode, blocking every useless emotion and running pure logic. I tapped the strange avatar and answered, "Oh." The ellipsis dots blinked, disappeared, then her follow-up appeared. "Big sis, you're not mad, right? Julian says you're the most generous woman he's ever met. My money, my husband, my bed, now I'm being praised for generosity." I curled a lip, pocketed the phone, and walked to my office. I opened an encrypted folder that held the contact of a patient's father who owns the city's best private investigation agency. I sent him Ava's name plus Julian's office address and typed, 20 minutes. I want her family tree, parents' jobs, phone numbers, everything. The reply came instantly. "Got you, Cameron." While I waited I brewed a double espresso, no sugar, no milk. The bitterness scraped my nerves back to full tension. I'd already given Julian chances. 3 months ago a $120,000 charge from a high-end jeweler had blossomed on his Amex. He shrugged and said it was a gift for a client's wife to land a big project. Last week, whispering on the balcony at 2 a.m., I still caught the word baby. He insisted it was just a capricious developer begging for plan changes. I'm a physician. I trust evidence, not bedtime stories. 19 minutes later a PDF landed in my inbox. Ava, 23, only child. Father, principal, vice principal up for promotion and obsessed with reputation. Mother, Mrs. Shaw, community cheerleader who parades her daughter's perfect city boyfriend to every neighbor. The file even held principal's keynote speech at the last school awards day and a photo of the model family banner hanging in his living room window. Perfect. I bundled the original selfie, the scanned Riverside lease, the $120,000 jewelry receipt, and 6 months' worth of Julian's wire transfers totaling $500,000 into a single zip. Recipient, principal's cell phone. Subject line, your daughter's recent news. Send. I sipped, leaned back, and watched the city lights glitter beyond the glass. The operation had begun. Julian came home close to 11, trailing a faint cocktail breath and a perfume I'd never worn, some cloying mix of pear and peony. As usual, he tossed his suit jacket onto the sofa, tugged off his tie, and sighed, "Long day?" I stepped aside when he tried to hug me and nodded toward the dining table. I'd ordered his favorite seafood congee, steam still curled above the bowl. Clients dragged me to another toast, couldn't say no, he said, sitting down. Only you take care of me, babe. Disgusting. I studied the man I'd loved for 5 years and married for 3. Handsome in an Ivy League way, gold-rimmed glasses, the gentlest smile. We'd met in college, he'd pursued me relentlessly, claiming he admired my drive, promising he'd protect me forever. My parents had bankrolled our condo downtown and his architecture studio. He called himself a self-made phoenix and swore he'd build an empire for me. Now I knew what empire he meant, using my money to buy another woman her happy ever after. "Julian," I said calmly, "let's talk." His spoon paused halfway to his mouth, caution flickered behind the lenses. "What's up? You look so serious. That intern at your office Ava, right?" Color drained from his face, then surged back in a practiced smile. "Why bring her up? She's a green kid with some talent. I'm mentoring her." "Mentoring?" I unlocked my phone and slid the selfie across the table. "Onto your pillow?" Silence congealed. The moment he recognized the shot, his pupils contracted. He lunged for the phone, but I pocketed it first. "Serena, listen," his voice cracked. "It's not what you think. I was drunk. She seduced you. You remember nothing, it just happened once." I finished the chorus for him. He froze, cheeks mottled crimson and ash. "I have one question," I said, holding his gaze. "How long?" It's new, I swear, only that one night." Still lying. Those transfer records, more than $500,000, stretched across 6 months. I smiled, stood up. "Julian, you make me sick." I spun on my heel, strode into the bedroom, and locked the door. Outside, his fists pounded in panic. "Serena, open up. Just listen to me. I love you. It's nothing. I'll kick her out tonight, I swear." I tuned him out, yanked the closet open, and dragged out a suitcase. I didn't own much, some clothes, a few vital documents. My phone rang, an out-of-town number I didn't recognize. I answered on speaker. A middle-aged man's voice, trembling with fury, came through. "Is this Serena?" The fish had taken the bait. Speaking. "Did you send those files?" "Yes." Half a minute of silence. His ragged breathing sounded like a beast about to charge. "That animal, where is he right now?" he bellowed. Julian was still pleading on the other side of the door. I kept my voice calm. "Jamie, don't rush. Your daughter is living in the apartment Julian rented for her. I'll text you the address." For 30 minutes Julian carried on. When I still didn't open, the noise finally stopped. I assumed he'd gone to call Ava. Sure enough, a scrap of paper soon slid under the bedroom door, his handwriting, sloppy and frantic. "Serena, I messed up, I know. I've cut her off, believe me. Don't let some outsider wreck what we've built. Please open the door. Let's talk. Outsiders didn't ruin us, you did." I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash, then texted my lawyer. "Charles, prep the papers. I want one thing." He walks away with nothing. Charles, top-tier divorce counsel and an old family friend, replied instantly. "You've got solid proof?" "Ironclad," I typed back. Every cent he spent on her came from our joint accounts, and most of it traces to the premarital infusion I put into the company. "Oh, and I'm the majority shareholder and legal rep of his studio." A pause, then 4 words, "his dead meat." I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling until dawn. At sunrise I rolled the suitcase into the hall. Julian had slept on the rug. He scrambled up, eyes bloodshot. "Serena, where are you going?" "Somewhere you aren't." I brushed past. He lunged and grabbed the handle. "No. I won't let you leave. You don't get a vote," I said, studying him like a stranger. I pulled a bound file from my purse and slapped it against his chest. "Divorce settlement. Sign. House, cars, equity all mine, premarital. Your studio's seed money came from my father as a gift. I have the proof. Every dollar you've siphoned is documented. Sign and walk away with nothing, or I'll bury you in embezzlement charges and you can decorate a cell for the next decade. Color drained from his face. When did you? The first time you bought her a handbag with company funds, I cut in. You thought your paper trail was invisible. I just hadn't bothered to laugh. His knees buckled. He slumped to the floor, muttering, "Impossible. How? Because the company is legally mine. You were merely an overpaid CEO." I wheeled the suitcase toward the door. The bell rang. Julian scrambled up like a drowning man spotting driftwood. On the threshold stood his parents and Julia, last night's cavalry. His mother rushed in, clutching my hand, tears on demand. "Serena, you can't divorce him. Men stray, it's nature. For my sake, forgive him." His father wore a patriarchal scowl. "Serena, he's our only son. Couples fight, they make up. Dragging this out helps no one." Julia, pampered princess, rolled her eyes. "Seriously, sis? A few groupies cling to him and you torch the marriage? Be more understanding." Their logic was breathtaking. I freed my hand and stepped back. 1. I'm not your daughter, so skip the mom routine. 2. Mistakes have price tags, his is past due. 3. My feelings died the second I saw that bedroom selfie. I looked each of them in the eye, ending on Julian. "And talented. Your brilliance is mortgaged to my bank account. Without me you'd still be drafting porches back in his hometown for grocery money." The words cracked across their faces like a whip. Julian flushed crimson, his mother froze, his father sputtered like a bad engine. Julia squealed, "Get over yourself. You're just rich. My brother loves your brain, not your wallet." I laughed softly. "Perfect, now he loses both." Done talking, I rolled my case toward the elevator. Julian flung himself forward, kneeling, arms clamped around my legs. "Serena, please, give me one last chance." Snot and tears streaked his cheeks. Amid the circus my phone rang, same out-of-town number. Speaker again. Principal's voice, hoarse but resolute. "Cameron, we're in downtown. That brat refuses to come home." I gave a non-committal hum. He continued, "She insists Julian will marry her and give her the family she wants. She says you're a barren hen, and Julian's been dying to divorce you." The instant those words left her mouth, Julian, still on his knees before me, went rigid. I could feel the hands clamped around my legs begin to tremble. Perfect, an own goal from my teammate Dot. "Jamie, your daughter has quite an imagination," I said, tone flat, emotion impossible to read. On the other end of the line the principal drew a slow, vicious breath. "Cameron, don't worry. The Shaws may not be Riverdale royalty, but we have our pride. We won't let her run wild." He paused, then continued, "We're standing outside her apartment right now. She won't buzz us up. Quinn, could you?" "Done." I cut him off. "I'm sending you the owner's ID and lease agreement this second. Call the police and tell them a stranger is illegally squatting in your property. Strip the kettle from the fire, fast, precise, ruthless. Dot." The apartment had been paid for in full before the wedding and was registered solely in my name. I'd simply let Julian handle the paperwork for renting it out, no big deal. I never expected him to use it as a love nest. When Julian heard my words his head snapped up, face twisted in horror and disbelief. "Serena, that house is mine." I looked down at him the way one looks at an ant. "Julian, every last cent you used to impress her still carries my surname." I hung up and forwarded the documents to the principal. The entire Vance clan froze. They'd probably never imagined that mild-mannered me could be this swift and merciless. Mrs. Mother finally came to life and began to wail, "Serena, you viper. How could you do this to Julian? What did our Julian ever do to you? He wronged me in every way possible." My stare was ice. "Control your son, keep him from hurting anyone else." I shook off Julian's hands, wheeled my suitcase, and walked out of the house that had sickened me for 6 months. Behind me rose Julian's desperate howls and the Vances' collective curses, total chaos. I never looked back. Once in the car I called Charles. "Rowan, start the lawsuit. And audit the last 6 months of Julian's studio books, focus on whether he's been billing personal expenses to company projects." "On it." Charles's voice was calm and steady. "Serena, you're doing the right thing. Right or wrong, sometimes that isn't the point. The point is making the wrong door pay. I checked into the Grand, had barely closed the suite door when Ava rang. Her voice was shrill, unhinged, like a cat whose tail had been stomped. Serena, you bitch. What poison did you pour into parents' ears? I simply recited your greatest hits, I said, pulling the curtains open. The sunlight was blinding. How dare you? You violated my privacy, Ava shrieked on the other end. Privacy? I laughed. When you texted me your bedroom selfies, did mine ever cross your mind? Words failed her. Ava, I'm busy. That condo you're standing in? Mine. You have 24 hours to pack and get out, or the police will escort you. Dream on. Julian rented it for me. He said I could stay forever. Really? Ask him if he still has the power to make promises. I hung up and blocked her number. Any further words would be a waste of my lifespan. The next 48 hours were blissfully quiet. Neither Julian nor Ava dared bother me again. I assumed they were busy firefighting their respective disasters. The Shaws proved formidable. That very afternoon the police invited Ava to vacate. Witnesses said it was ugly, her luggage dumped at the complex gate while her parents marched her out under the neighbors' stare of shame, fleeing town in disgrace. A vice principal who prizes reputation above all and a model civil servant wife simply cannot endure a daughter turned notorious homewrecker. On Julian's side, Charles moved like lightning. Court summons and an asset freeze order arrived at the studio simultaneously. The instant Julian saw the company accounts locked and every dollar of working capital vanish, true panic set in. He began bombarding me with calls and texts, first begging, then repentant, then cursing and threatening, his mood whiplashing by the minute. I ignored every one. On the third morning I was in my hospital office reviewing charts when Julia stormed in. Serena. She slammed a designer handbag onto my desk. What more do you want? Do you have to drive my family into the grave? I glanced at the bag, latest season, price tag well into 5 figures. Bought with my money and now flung at me as evidence of my cruelty. Your brother is digging his own grave, I said mildly. Liar. My brother adores you. He just lost his head for a second. Why can't you give him one chance? She railed. You froze the company account, payroll is due, projects are dead. Do you even know the damage? Selfish woman. Damage? I closed the folder and met her gaze with an arctic stare. Julia, that bag on your shoulder was charged to the project advance. The 20 grand you blew in Europe last month? Company card. Think I didn't notice? Julia's face drained white. All of it constitutes embezzlement. If I press charges, both you and your brother go to prison. I leaned forward slightly, voice low, each word an icicle driven into her heart. Now pick up your toy and get out of my office. Otherwise my next call is to the Economic Crimes Unit. Julia gave a full-body shudder, snatched the bag, and fled in disorder. When dealing with trash, use the simplest, most effective method. The moment Julia scrambled away, quiet returned to my office. But I knew this was only the lull before the real storm. Julian would not surrender. Sure enough, that evening Charles called. Serena, Julian's camp wants a meeting. To discuss what? A divorce settlement. He's willing to walk away from the company, from the house. But he wants half the joint savings and immunity from any embezzlement probe. After every sordid stunt, he still expects a payday? I gave a short laugh. Rowan, what do you think? He chuckled back. Exactly what I told them, forget it. Apparently he's hired himself a decent lawyer, Charles said. Their side claims that if we can't reach a settlement they'll argue in court that you've been married to your career for years, neglecting the home, until the marriage cracked. They're calling his affair passive cheating. Passive cheating? I almost laughed myself sick at the coinage. How very noble of him. They want to muddy the waters and buy time, hoping to dig up something that hurts us, Charles analyzed. But relax, our evidence chain is rock solid. He can't flip the board. I know. I needed the bridge of my nose. Rowan, set up a meeting with him tomorrow. Use your firm's conference room. You've changed your mind? No. I just feel like front row seats to a farce. Some things have to be settled face to face so the condemned man sees the blade coming. The next afternoon I arrived at the firm early. Julian showed up soon after, a shrewd-looking attorney at his side. He was a wreck, unshaven, eyes sunken, every trace of his old swagger gone. When he saw me, his gaze tangled, hate, resentment, and a frayed thread of hope. Serena, he began, but I cut him off with a raised hand. It's Cameron, or Morgan. I took the head of the table. Charles sat beside me. Ellis, let's skip the prologue. Your demands are dead on arrival. The divorce settlement is the one I gave you. Walk away with nothing. Sign now and we're done. Refuse and we meet again in court. Julian's lawyer adjusted his glasses. Morgan, that's excessive. Marriage is a joint venture. Blame for the breakdown can't be laid solely on my client. Ellis has given a great deal to this family, such as giving my money to set up another woman. I shot back. The counsel's face stiffened. Julian clenched his fists, reigning in rage. Serena, don't push it. Leave some slack in the rope for your own sake. I never want to see you again, so no slack is required. A knock interrupted us. Charles's assistant slipped in, and behind her stepped the last person I expected. Ava. She looked worse than Julian, no makeup, face haggard, eyes swollen, but the hatred she leveled at me was razor sharp. Serena, you ruined me, so don't think you'll walk off unscathed, she screeched the instant she crossed the threshold. Julian's complexion drained. What are you doing here? Get out. Why shouldn't I? Ava laughed, a raw, broken sound. Julian, this isn't what you promised. You said you loved me, that you'd divorce this woman and marry me. Now, to protect your precious cash, you toss me like garbage. Dog eat dog, fur everywhere. I eased back in my chair, popcorn moment ready. Stop spewing lies. Julian lunged to muffle her. Ava shoved him off, yanked a wad of printed chat transcripts from her canvas tote, and slapped them on the conference table. Lies. Read for yourself. Eyes bloodshot, she pivoted from Julian to me, relishing the detonation. Serena, you think it was just an affair. He married you for your family's money from day one. All these years he played loving husband while branding you an ice queen behind your back, calling your parents heartless parasite. He swore once he seized control of the company the first thing he'd do was kick you out and make me his trophy wife. Julian's face was beyond pale, corpse ash grey. He trembled, finger stabbing at Ava, lips quivering, no sound escaping. His lawyer looked poleaxed. Clearly this act hadn't been in the script. I lifted the transcripts and skimmed. The contents were filthier than Ava's summary. Julian's honeyed pet names painted a future scrubbed of me. He called my fortune dirty money, money he'd launder into their clean tomorrow. A living monument to having your cake and spitting on it too. I laid the pages down and met Julian's eyes, no fury, only pure contempt and pity. Julian, you're pathetic. The sentence suctioned every last watt of life from him. He dropped to his knees, not to me, but to the pile of paper. He was finished. He knew these pages meant not a cent, not a shred of dignity. No, none of it's true. Serena, she fabricated, he babbled defenses even he couldn't buy. Ava laughed until the tears came. Fabricated? Then let's dial 911 right now and have the cops verify every pixel of those chat transcripts. She spun to me, resolve glinting. Serena, I know you hate me, but I hate him more. I'll broadcast these online, to every relative back in his hometown's group chat so the world can see the saint is a leech. Accidental power play or divine retribution? Watching the circus, I felt hollow. Was ruining my life for this man ever worth it? I studied Ava. You realize once you hit send, you torch yourself as well. I'm already ashes, she shrieked. The day parents dragged me out of that house and slapped me in front of the entire faculty I died. If I'm burning, everyone burns. She sprinted out, wild-eyed, like a madwoman fleeing her own echoes. Avery, the room sank into tomb-grade silence. Julian stayed kneeling, a statue with its soul chipped out. His attorney shuffled papers, unwilling to touch the fallout. Ellis, I see no point continuing today. Further correspondence will go through successor counsel, Charles declared, voice brisk with dismissal. The opposing counsel bolted, mumbling, I'll take my leave, and vanished. Only 3 of us breathed in that oversized chamber. After an age Julian lifted his head. His eyes held no schemes, only vacuum. Serena, he rasped, sandpaper on bone, there's no going back after this. I rose, smoothing my skirt. Ellis, we're done here. Charles will forward the final decree. Sign it or don't. The footage from today will make a lovely exhibit either way. Julian remained kneeling, a marionette with its strings cut. Ava wiped her face, turned on her heel, and stalked out, shoes drumming like gunfire down the corridor. Charles exhaled for the first time in minutes. "I'll have the papers couriered before 5. I nodded, stepped over the scattered transcripts, and walked out without looking back. I never should have let greed blind me, never should have swallowed Ava's poison. The one I've always loved is you. A belated show of affection is cheaper than weeds." I stared at the face that once made my heart race. Now it looked foreign, ridiculous. "Spare me the performance, Julian." I rose and looked down at him. "You never loved me, you loved the life I bankrolled, the ego boost you got climbing on my back. You don't hate Ava, you hate that she torpedoed your future. The only person you've ever loved is yourself." Every sentence was a scalpel, slicing through his shiny skin to the filthy selfishness beneath. He opened his mouth, but no words came. "I'll have Charles send you another copy of the divorce settlement. Sign it or don't, your choice." I dropped that line and walked out. At the door I paused without turning. "Oh, one more thing." While Charles was auditing, he found serious corner-cutting and design flaws in several projects your studio handled. One of them was contracted to relatives back in your hometown. If this blows up, the studio goes bankrupt and you personally face criminal charges. That was the final blow I'd prepared. Behind me Julian sucked in a hopeless gasp. I didn't stop. I strode straight out of the law office. The sun was gorgeous. I inhaled deeply and felt the last bit of poison leave my chest. It's over. Everything is over. I thought the curtain had fallen, but there was an encore. Ava kept her word. She packaged the chat transcripts along with Julian's sleazy photos into a long, illustrated exposé and posted it online. The headline was explosive: "How a Gold-Digging Architect Scammed Me, the True Face of a Married Fraud." She painted herself as a naive girl blinded by love and Julian as a schemer who used women as stepping stones. The post detonated the internet. Julian and his studio shot to the top of trending hashtags. His history of shoddy work was excavated, and several developers joined forces to sue. Overnight, relatives in his hometown went from boasting the Vance family produced a scholar to cursing that ungrateful parasite. The Vance name in his hometown was mud. His parents collapsed under the pressure and were hospitalized. Julia lost her job because her lavish lifestyle had been funded by Julian's embezzlement. Julian himself became a rat everyone wanted to stone, studio shuttered, buried in debt, facing multiple indictments. He made one last call. No begging, no cursing, just a quiet voice. "Serena, was every step, even Ava's final ambush, part of your plan from day one?" I thought for a second. Not entirely. Ava was an accident. But even without her, your ending wouldn't have changed. Because from the moment you betrayed me, you became nothing more than a tumor requiring precise excision. He was silent a long time, then laughed softly, broken and bitter. "I see. I lost fair and square." That was the last time I heard his voice. Days later the news reported his formal arrest for commercial fraud and construction safety violations. Ava got short-term detention for spreading private material. Mutual destruction, no winner. When all the dust settled, I took a long vacation. I went to Tibet, watched sunrise over Namtso, felt the thin air at Everest. The alpine sun and wind scoured the dust off my soul. I deleted every contact, every photo linked to Julian, like a surgery that removes every trace of necrotic tissue. One day Charles called. Julian's sentence was in. 10 years, multiple counts combined. The Vance family sold their hometown house to scrape together compensation for the developers. "By the way," Charles added, his mother asked someone to pass on a message, "Julian regrets everything and hopes you'll visit once." No. I refused flatly. I'm not a waste management site. I have zero interest in watching garbage rot. My life moves forward. When the leave ended, I returned to Riverdale General and slipped on my white coat. Colleagues said I looked different, calmer, steadier. After carving out poison, you always change. I poured myself into work, cracked one medical puzzle after another, and my name began appearing in top journals. I became the youngest department chief in the hospital's history. Plenty asked me out, tycoons, brilliant peers, but I politely declined. I don't trust love easily anymore, but I still trust myself. A single life can shine just as brightly. Another wedding anniversary came around, now my rebirth day. I hadn't marked it, I just happened to see the date while checking my schedule. I had a major operation that day. By the time I stepped out it was late. I changed out of my scrubs and left the building. The night breeze was cool. A familiar car idled at the curb. The window slid down, revealing a gentle smile. My Alex, Dr. Hale. He too was a top-flight surgeon. He'd gone abroad for fellowship and had only recently returned. Sam, off shift. He waved. Alex, what are you doing here? I heard today's your rebirth day. He lifted a bouquet of sunflowers from the passenger seat. Came to celebrate. I froze. I'd mentioned it once, only to Rowan. Rowan told you? Dr. Hale nodded, eyes soft. He said you deserve a new chapter. I agree. He opened the door. Come on, reservations made. I looked at the sunflowers in his arms, golden faces glowing like little suns of hope, and I laughed, a real, light laugh from the heart. I climbed in and cradled the bouquet. Sounds perfect. The car pulled into the river of city lights. Neon slipped past the windows like a flowing ribbon of color. I knew my life would rush on like that river, ever forward. As for past wounds and betrayals, let them sink to the bottom and vanish. My life is mine to write. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed it, please like and share with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time. 3 years of radio silence, and the moment I fly back I find my boyfriend has built a brand new life. He's about to get engaged to the illegitimate. The girl who's technically my younger steps in front of my roadster, smiling like the victor already, the diamond on her ring finger blazing so bright it hurts. She tells me, everything that belongs to older, I'm going to take. I smile. 3 days later, her ring finger is broken. Later still, in a bar roaring with voices, Lucas kneels at my feet, face dark with rage, while I let a stream of red wine cascade over his head. I prop my chin on my hand, laughing, gaze fond and playful. The day I lose interest in you, you'll finally behave. 3 years can remake a person. Briar is unrecognizable. No more soot on her cheeks, no more stammered apologies. Spine straight, chin high, money has raised her the way it raised me into a carbon copy. So when she spreads her arms to block my car, I don't floor the accelerator and watch her scramble away like I used to. I stop. I let her deliver her 3-year victory speech. I'm getting married, older. To Lucas. She flashes the diamond. Honest to God, it's dazzling. I blink, and the image of Lucas from 3 years ago flickers across my mind, the man who swore he had to build his career before we could have a future. Briar catches my pause, a smug curve tugging at her lips. She leans toward the open window. Besides him, every last thing that belongs to older, I'll pluck it away, piece by piece. Will you? I stare into those innocent, idiotic eyes. The faint ache dissolves, replaced by genuine delight. Are you sure? The next second the engine roars. The scream of exhaust washes over her, blanching her face, scorching the hem of her white dress. Briar dashes back to the banquet hall, sobbing into her phone, and I receive the first call from my father since I landed. His voice is steady, furnace hot with fury. Serena. Don't overplay it. Briar invites Lucas to escort her at her graduation. Lucas, 25, the star the Vance Foundation bankrolled, the boyfriend I kept. Briar is styled to perfection. Midnight blue, the Atelier mermaid gown from the fall collection, custom Chanel heels, jewels worth a townhouse. She becomes the natural center of every lens and whisper. Pity the man on her arm is mine, and the price tag on her outfit is mine as well. God, I'm so jealous of Senior Vance, pretty, brilliant, and her fianc dotes on her. That's Professor Hale, the youngest professor in the university. Shut up. Professor Hale used to be hers. I walk in just in time to hear that line. The heat of a spotlight has burned a hole through Briar's skirt. Lucas kneels, smoothing salve over her calf. A hallmark moment until I arrive. Gasps ripple through the hall. In Eastbrook, no one doesn't know my face. Under 1,000 stares I cut straight to Lucas. 3 years ago the whole city knew he was my private territory, no trespassing. Everyone expects fireworks. Instead I greet him like an old acquaintance. While I was away you traded down for a stand-in. Lucas's brows knit. He lifts his head, speaks before Briar can summon tears. Serena. She isn't a stand-in, and she isn't second-rate. Is that so? Briar and I grew up together. I've loved her, only her, from the start. His lashes tremble, delivering words that grate like glass. We're done. Really? How disappointing. Briar's eyes glint triumph as she threads her arm through his. All of Eastbrook knows how I chased Lucas, heiress, throwing cash and cachet at a man who wouldn't bite, offering myself for free. Briar is 7/10 my mirror. If she's not the stand-in, then who is? Suddenly the game feels interesting. Curiosity and pity flicker across every onlooker's face. I'll repay every dime the Vance family spent on me. Stop clinging. Serena. Money isn't omnipotent. The air freezes. Delighted voyeurs hold their breath. I narrow my eyes. I spoiled him so thoroughly he forgot that without me he's nothing. He expects the old pattern. I cave in private, flatter his pride, beg behind closed doors. He lives for face. For his face I once played the clown. Now, even while slashing ties, his expression stays unruffled. I broke the contract first. I'm willing to pay. Wonderful. I nod, smiling. I accept. I agree so fast Briar flinches, certain I'd never let go. I turn to the crowd, hauteur intact. From this moment, Vance Corporation severs all support for Lucas funding, labs, every dollar at Eastbrook University. I'm granting his wish. Meanwhile, Vance is shopping for a new research partner. Interested parties must deliver Lucas 3 slaps, non-negotiable. Older. Have you lost it? Who would? Lucas's head is bowed. Briar shrieks first. The illegitimate, raised exactly as my mother prescribed, naive, gullible, believes capturing Lucas's heart equals capturing the world. But the crowd doesn't mirror her outrage. The girls hesitate. The boys vibrate with hunger. He breached the deal. He pays. I'm bored anyway, happy to discard him. The instant bored leaves my lips. Lucas's composure cracks. Briar gapes, certain I'd never relinquish the man I stalked for years. It's only the opening act. Countdown from 3. I'll do it. The volunteer is classic striking beauty, lush brows, peach blossom eyes, a face made for sweet betrayal. Julian, the disowned younger scion of Huakong Holdings. He saunters up, performs an exaggerated bow to Lucas. Sorry, Professor. I really don't want to grind anymore. It pains me to hit you. But when you won't grab an open jackpot, what are you thinking? Apologies, don't blame me. He doesn't slap. He drives a closed fist punch. His face swims with regret, near tears, yet each blow lands harder than the last. One pebble, 1,000 ripples. The boys surge forward, eager. Only 3 slaps, potentially a lifetime of fortune. How lavish the reward can be is written all over Lucas's rise, orphan from the orphanage to Eastbrook's celebrity professor. He credits genius. He forgets that without me he's nothing. Through clenched teeth Lucas asks, "You promised." This settles it. I smile and nod. That night Lucas collapses, blacked out and ambulance-bound, while Briar's shriek never leaves the air. I was spreading jam on a blueberry muffin when Victor's second call came in. Julian, better manners than Lucas, sat mute on the sofa at dawn, chin in hand, calculus worksheets balanced on his crossed knee. My biological father's roar nearly split the speaker. Watch your step, Briar is your own younger. I was bored. Having a rival house's scion in the room made Victor's lecture an embarrassment. I tapped the table and lowered my voice. Mother's ashes are flying home tomorrow. Strike the no-fly zone, he hung up at once. Julian lifted his eyes, half smiling. Older's finished. Am I in the way? A penniless man never knows what's good for him, so I'll try a new model. Help a ruined prince win back his kingdom, maybe he'll lick my boots in gratitude. I dragged him home drunk last night. He spent it on the hall sofa. At sunrise he greeted me bright-eyed. Morning, boss. I sauntered over in my bathrobe, settled on his lap, tilted his chin. This isn't an employment contract, it's a patronage deal, clear? He grinned like a slacker but steadied my waist. Crystal. Thanks for the sponsorship, boss. I truly released. Lucas erased every contact, reclaimed the mansion, cut every lifeline. The circuit didn't buy it at first, but as months passed and Julian stayed on my arm they understood. The heiress had tired of her old toy. Briar phoned now and then to brag. Victor signed another deed over to her. Lucas loves her to the moon. The man I adored had chosen her, she was cock-a-doodle. I let her crow for the entertainment. Fun is fun, but no one touches my wardrobe. I'd almost forgotten Victor's 48th until the invitation landed. A dozen dishes waited on the table, all cooked by Briar. She was pounding Victor's back when I walked in. Lucas glanced up from the sofa, eyes reddening the instant Briar did, but I didn't spare him a look. The affectionate duo kept whispering, "I'm marrying Lucas, Daddy. Give him a post at the conglomerate, please." I snorted. 10 years I'd chased Lucas, bankrolled him, made a fool of myself proposing, he'd refused. The solitaire he'd designed for Briar looked positively obstructive to me. Briar thought a scrap of DNA plus Victor's nod would turn illegitimate to crown princess. Wrong. Vance Conglomerate isn't Victor's Vance. It's my mother's, she let him borrow the name. Mother only approved a short visit. She never said squat about bedroom raids or closet raids. I stared at the sperm donor, disgusted. Victor's supermale syndrome flared, he roared for patriarchal respect. Briar is my daughter, you're younger, no different. What's yours is hers. Every trailer park king turns into this once he tastes money. Victor fed Briar's delusion bite by bite. I flicked 2 fingers backward. Trash every garment in my suite. Bill Victor's shares. Yes, heiress. Butlers streamed past Victor's curses. 4 faces around the room, 4 flavors of panic. Briar and Lucas watched Victor's livid cheeks. The steward pulled my chair. I sat, picked at Briar's offerings. New recipes for Daddy? Mother tried that playbook, didn't stick. Housewife stew works better horizontal. Serena. Victor and my ex-true love barked together. Lucas gave me the warning scowl that once made me soft, brows welded into a gorge. His prudish mask plus Briar's wilted lily act, hero saves damsel in Technicolor. Victor lunged, palm connecting with a crack that snapped my head sideways and dotted blood at the corner of my mouth, pins scattering from my chignon. Mother left me everything on one condition. I could never lay a finger on Victor. He keeps his cozy retirement. You asked for it, he stammered, horror blooming the instant echo faded, not remorse, fear I might revoke his last shred of dignity. I flipped the banquet table. The rosewood snapped, sauces cascading over Briar's white silk and branding her forearm crimson. This time no one intervened, not Victor, not staff, because nobody questions the heiress's script. Briar screamed on delay, naive enough to think public rupture equals coronation for the illegitimate. She believes if her mistress mother chased my mother out, she can evict me. I have no off-limit signs. Serena, enough, Lucas hissed, seizing my wrist. It's Victor's birthday. Must you humiliate everyone? Try thinking of someone else for once. I laughed aloud. An illegitimate's fianc preaching manners? A kept man is the mirror of his mistress, cheap. The ice in my eyes scalded him. He recoiled 2 steps, missing my sudden smirk. Lucas, don't fight, Briar bleated, half draped over him, though his body had already angled away. I'm not happy, I confirmed. I accepted a linen napkin from a footman, wiped sauce from my fingers, and pitched the greasy square into Lucas's chest. Then I smiled at Victor and Briar. Forgot to say happy birthday, Daddy. Long trip for nothing, let's skip next year. I stepped past Lucas, gaze fixed on Briar's ring hand. Victor once held those hands to play the piano, using my mother's favorite instrument in her own house, staging the perfect picture of fatherly love and filial devotion. Now those same fair fingers wore the ring my fiancé Lucas had given me. Since you've always adored an illegitimate's hands, how about I chop them off and wrap them up as your birthday gift? I ruined Victor's birthday. The family dinner ended with Briar's blood-curdling shriek. She kicked, she screamed, but it was useless. The butler moved so fast that Lucas couldn't even react. Blood pattered across the floor in wet percussion, and Briar lost 3 fingers. Victor never said a word, he only looked at me with steadily mounting venom. A beloved daughter means nothing next to power and money. The old man is ill. Keep an eye on him, don't let riffraff come near. With that single sentence I severed Briar from the Vance family line. She is alive and breathing in this house only because my mother's love-addled brain once beat too hard for Victor. My mother Eleanor Vance had been the legendary crowned princess of Eastbrook. a sovereign of the boardroom, yet the moment she spotted the scholarship boy Victor on campus, she was thunderstruck. Whatever Eleanor wanted became hers, so the man changed his surname to Vance and was launched on a trajectory reserved for gods. But he was wretched to her. He cloaked himself in scorn even while he siphoned her money. He spat speeches about her looseness, yet knelt to lick favors from her hand. Eleanor knew everything and forgave everything. Victor reunited with his first love 2 years into their marriage? She shrugged. The pair produced a daughter? She shrugged again. They named the child Briar? Still, she shrugged. Truly, she did not care. Perhaps Victor's mistress once fantasized that tears could win her my mother's throne. The woman flattered Victor without limit, never guessing Eleanor hadn't planned to let her live. Eleanor disposed of the mistress as tidily as flicking ash, then parked Briar in an orphanage, paid handlers to keep the girl stupid and sweet, prey too feeble for Eastbrook's jungle. Victor never knew. He would never leave Eleanor. He could never leave her fortune. Eleanor plotted every inch except the ruin of her own flesh. While she faded, Victor smuggled Briar abroad for treatment and left her there forever. Surveying her life, I draw one blunt conclusion. Fall for a poor man and a woman courts disaster. To everyone's shock, Eleanor's will bypassed Victor. It handed everything to me. Jamie, whenever Victor and Eleanor battled, I could only huddle, friendless, in corners. The wars ended the same way, her hopeless sobs, his indifferent back. Eleanor never smiled at me, she meted out blows and curses, yet I never doubted she loved me. Victor could be exhausted and still fry my breakfast and smooth my sheets, yet every instinct told me he wished me dead. A child senses malice far sooner than a woman drunk on love. I didn't understand Eleanor until the day Victor took me to an orphanage to choose a playmate. The instant he spotted Briar, his mask softened into an expression I had never seen. But I only had eyes for the boy grinning at me. Lucas kept smiling no matter how fiercely I scowled, no matter how wickedly I tested him the next few days. He gave me the grand tour, introduced every ward, invented games, coddled my whims. When Victor purposely shoved me, Lucas picked me up, pretended nothing had happened, and asked whether the blueberry muffins were ready. I knew why he fawned, knew every hook beneath the sugar, yet I took the bait. Victor drove home empty-handed because I ignored his illegitimate and dragged back Lucas. I coined him a name myself and announced to Mother. I found my new toy. I adored Lucas the way a child adores a yipping puppy. Even when the grown dog bares his teeth, I forgive him for once wagging his tail at me. Much later I learned he mailed letters to Briar. Wait until I tame Serena, then I'll bring you here in glory. The song of childhood sweethearts, sung across 2 generations. He will never get that chance now. I have rerouted every resource he once commanded straight to Julian. I can bankroll Julian's bid to reclaim his birthright, sculpt him into a scholar who eclipses Lucas, even crown him a movie idol adored coast to coast. I have money and power. In Eastbrook, whatever I desire is mine. Likewise, one hint that Lucas is a man I used and discarded will blacklist him forever. Deans and provosts send assurances that Professor Hale's resume is already denied, just to score one dinner with me. I grant the dates. Why not? I can keep company with any man I fancy. However spoiled I act, they grovel gratefully. When I'm bored, my bespoke perfect lover escorts me home and up to cloud-quilted ecstasy. Years ago Lucas's single word easy once drove me to slam doors and seethe alone. Times have changed. I have learned the lesson agony taught. With enough money you can bend the universe to your aesthetic. I used to savor his defiance, so I let him swagger. Now the taste sours, so he must change. He will crawl, kiss my feet, and beg, please, pity me. I parade Julian through every chandeliered hall. He is brilliant, beautiful, and heir to a dynasty that rivals mine, a flawless accessory, far more malleable than Lucas. If I am a wolf, he is a leopard, yet he sells his misery honestly. Cash, contacts, body, stated price. No tantrums, no coyness, no rebellion. I am on his arm trading pleasantries with socialites and power brokers when I turn and see the silhouette I know better than my own. Briar walks the red carpet hand in hand with Lucas, smiling like a bride. His big hand swallows hers, pose of a protector. Victor has settled half his real estate empire on her, gifting her fresh armor. Spotting me in the crowd, Briar sachets over, hips swaying blind to the instant Lucas drops her fingers when he sees my face. Older. Money alone won't suffice. Life is pitiable when no one loves you. Daddy gave me the charity gala invitation so I can attend as his only daughter. Older isn't angry, is she? A slice of her ring finger is missing. The pain of torn sinew is alien to me, yet she has already forgotten the wound. You'll come to my wedding, won't you, Older? Forgot to tell Older, Dad gave me the Vance mansion as my wedding house. She was still so naive, thinking her feeble provocation would cause some sensational stir, yet aside from Mr. Johnson, the host standing beside me, flicking her a dismissive glance, no one else even blinked. Mr. Johnson led me toward the inner hall, every other sentence praising how perfectly Julian and I matched, how sweet we looked, asking whether happy news was imminent. Julian's fingers laced through mine. He smiled, actually shy, like some bashful little bride. We swept past Briar, and past Lucas, his eyes bloodshot, behind her. For the first time, the Lucas who had always basked at the center of attention became invisible. Not a single former protégé offered a greeting, every former flatterer vanished into thin air. No one can stomach a fall that steep. I could ignore Briar, but Briar couldn't accept it. She practically glared as she blocked my path, finger jabbing at me then at Julian, her voice cracking with disbelief. You actually found someone else. Serena. Dad's right, you and your mother are both shameless. Ah. The next second a wine bottle shattered against Briar's skull. Crimson wine poured down her hair, blood mingling in the flow until you couldn't tell them apart. Julian, the one who just struck, looked close to tears. Sorry, pure accident. You won't hold it against me, will you? Mr. Johnson glanced from me to Briar, trembling with rage, and in an instant understood everything. He didn't move a muscle. The piano fell silent, every eye in the ballroom swiveled toward us. Briar, tear-streaked and blank, looked pitiable, yet no one cared. Lucas stood 2 steps away but never came closer. Briar was the center of attention again. You snatched Dad's property for no reason, defied him again and again, harmed your own sibling and slandered whoever you pleased. Serena, do these people here even know the real you? Her voice rang out, bold and resonant. Blood oozed from her clenched right fist. But the hall was hushed. You could hear the pendulum of the grand clock. Whether anyone was curious about my real face was debatable. Everyone here, though, wanted to see what would happen to Briar next. Nothing to say. Feeling guilty, Serena? Before the last echo died, a torrent of water crashed down, cutting her off mid-breath, drenching her from crown to hem, droplets splattering in ragged bursts. She blinked, disbelieving, tried to speak, and spat out a mouthful of grey water. I followed the stream to the second-floor gallery. A woman in red held an empty silver ice bucket, doubled over laughing, while behind her the entire entourage watched with identical mockery. Vance heiress. Is the Vance dynasty already ruined? In our house, an illegitimate doesn't get to bark at the rightful owner. Laughter rippled through the hall. I gave a theatrical frown. Is that so? Whatever shall we do? Family scandal stays in the family, and now it's aired for all of Eastbrook to see. Eyes full of ridicule or contempt converged on Briar. Someone reached for my wrist. Julian blocked him. Lucas, brows knitted tight, was staring at me. Serena. Enough. Indeed. Enough. I gave Mr. Johnson a polite smile of apology and signaled the bodyguards to pin Briar's arms and march her out. Her shrieks and cries for help earned only rolled eyes from the onlookers. Serena. Let her go. Are you insane? Lucas lunged toward me, but Julian kicked him to the floor. Such manners. Avery speaking to Older that way will make her very, very sad. The band struck up again. Julian's kick had been vicious, and Lucas lay trembling, unable to rise. It was the last time I ever leaned down to speak to Lucas. You've become boring. A fallen favorite has no business begging its master for treats. Briar gone, Lucas lost his final backer. Every research group shunned him. No top-tier university would touch him. His days of glory ended. The once lauded prodigy sank into frustrated obscurity. He began sending calling cards to my mansion. I replied with my engagement invitation. I remembered the day we left. Julian's smile enigmatic as he bent over Lucas, still sprawled on the ground. Don't blame older, Avery. She's gorgeous and filthy rich, it's only fair she be a little willful. And thank you, really, for persuading her to accept me. His always steeped in tea-scented words, yet his actions fit no such delicacy. Once I resolved to help him wrest the family fortune, we became partners. Julian would borrow the Vance influence to reclaim his birthright. In return, I would receive 40% of Huakong Holdings. The invitation reached Lucas while I was playing cards at a nightclub. Julian's arms looped around my waist, men and women drifting past, premium liquor perfuming the air, the room dim and echoing with layered laughter. Lucas pushed the door and walked in just as Julian and I touched noses, sharing a single cloud of cotton candy. The big boy pouted at being short-changed a bite, though amusement glittered in his eyes. Cheers and jeers erupted, turning Lucas's face greener by the second. He had finally learned obedience, or perhaps this was his first taste of cold neglect. He simply stood there, waiting for us to tire of our game. Something on your mind, Avery? I lounged in Julian's arms, tilting my head with a smile. Serena. I regret it. Smart enough not to ask where Briar was, nor stupid enough to demand I keep my distance from any man, he finally seemed to understand his station and acted accordingly. Yet when I looked at him I saw only his long-ago childhood sweetheart. Briar, now shipped to Mauritius, Africa. No ID, no phone, not a dollar, not a companion. At the last moment she had screamed herself hoarse, eyes bulging. Where are you sending me? America, Australia. Dad will never let you get away with it. You'll destroy yourself if you dare. Pinned to the floor, limbs restrained, she still believed Victor would swoop in to save her. I studied her twisted face and suddenly laughed. You're nothing like your mother. Briar's mother had been gentle as water, even cornered by my mother inside a locked chamber, she'd done nothing but sob softly and beg in whispers. Once my mother's closest confidant, she climbed willingly into my father's bed and urged him to murder me so they could elope. I lack my mother's thunderous methods. Briar lacks her mother's scheming patience. My stiletto crushed Briar's other hand, our final farewell. Now, facing Lucas's groveling face, I felt only boredom, and a strange pang that my dear younger had proven so worthless. No thrill of conquest whatsoever. The scene I'd fantasized crumbled to dust. No stubborn huddle in a corner, no weed clinging to life, no vow to battle evil for the sake of his vanished love. I'd assumed he was a wolf. I'd wanted to train him into my dog. But facts proved he had always been a dog spoiled by affection, insatiable. He lifted his head without conviction, lowered it without willingness. I ignored him. He ground his teeth, then dropped to both knees. I'm sorry, Serena. I was wrong. These past days I've thought about everything. I really, truly can't live without you. The red wine swirling in my glass had lost its taste, so I tipped it casually over Lucas's head. Crimson droplets slid down the man's face like tears. Once I would have loved the sight, tonight I had no appetite for it. Just as I thought. The moment I lose interest, you behave. He looked up, eyes shining with hope. This time I couldn't even be bothered to smile. But I'm getting married, Lucas. I'm done playing. The night deepened. Julian and I walked home side by side. Lucas squatted alone beneath my building, shoulders white with snow, the cashmere overcoat I had given him folded over his arm. Who knew how long he had waited? I was a little drunk, a little tired. Thinking how he had drained the fun from my game, I felt a fresh surge of annoyance. Julian had been sullen ever since Lucas appeared and still had not spoken. Honestly, watching two handsome men brood stirred nothing in me. Lucas had been banished long ago. I'd thought Julian the perfect lover, but apparently even he could sulk like any mortal, incapable of staying professionally pleasant for his patron. I was muttering inwardly when Julian tightened his grip on my hand. The man who had worn a black face all evening suddenly flashed a radiant smile. Oh dear, did Avery lose his way and accidentally wander to our door? Goodness, still in those stained clothes, don't tell me Avery is still blaming Older. Older didn't mean it, really. Avery was the one who couldn't watch his tongue. Are you here demanding compensation? But if I recall correctly, every stitch on you was bought with Older's money. How enviable. Older never shops for me, just hands me a fat check and tells me to go out and buy whatever I want. Why wait downstairs so long? Doesn't the gatehouse have a waiting lounge? If Avery catches cold, Older will blame herself again. Naughty Avery. Julian seemed to have stored up those sentences for ages, abandoning even the pretense of gentleness. The words were sickening, yet his bright voice slid up and down, peppered with eye rolls, strangely hilarious. Lucas stood speechless. I was the first to snort with laughter. Avery is amazing, one look and Older beams. Imagine if Avery actually liked Older, how ecstatic Older would be. Pity Avery only loves Older's money, oh, and maybe Older's cheap knockoffs. Awful Avery, truly awful, always making Older mad. Unlike me, I only ache for Older. I've talked so long and Avery still hasn't put on his coat, frozen stupid. Planning to sue Older for support. Please no, what about your grandmother? I'm tiny and pitiful, will Older abandon me? Ah, Older, stop laughing, say something. Lucas's carefully planned night-long appeal was sabotaged by Julian's venomous monologue. He had always dismissed Julian as a prop to annoy him until tonight. Because I never spared him a glance, never offered pitying comfort or regretful tears. I laughed the entire time, eyes on Julian, doubled over until I nearly blacked out. Somehow the man half carried me back inside. When I'd laughed enough, I lolled on the sofa and studied him. Julian. Yes. Older called anything at all. That's enough. He fell silent, the smile freezing at the corners of his mouth. Once you reclaim your family's holdings, we revert to a normal business partnership. The old NDA contract is void, and I'll go shopping for a real trophy boyfriend. I had only wanted his pedigree, a Lee conglomerate alliance to pry Victor's last shares loose. A clean break, friends at best. I spoke lightly, straightened my clothes, and headed for the master suite. The snow had been heavy, soaking my lining and leaving me chilled. Suddenly I was pulled into an embrace. Julian's voice cracked. Why, Older? Am I not good-looking enough, not obedient enough? Why someone else? I'm younger than Lucas and richer, better in every way, yet you only want him. You already agreed to marry me. I'll transfer every asset to you. Just don't discard me, I beg you. His hot tears soaked my collar. I've never indulged sentiment, yet guilt pricked me. Julian. You're young, you'll love many people. I won't be among them. It makes no difference to me, being with you costs me nothing. But what will people say about you? I don't care, but I will love plenty of others. I won't marry you, and I can't promise a future. It's fine. I'll try. All right. I stopped struggling. Draft the property transfer contract quickly. You've got it. I never saw Lucas again after that night. The man vanished as though erased. Much later my brain finally caught up and I asked Julian. He gave a sheepish grin and said he had shipped Lucas to a happy nation. Mauritius. He sliced his steak, sneaking glances at my expression. I dabbed my mouth, thought for a moment, and answered, nice. He can dive, chase humpback whales, maybe even meet the love of his life. Briar, now a performance artist in a gallery since both hands were useless, was still putting on shows. Julian paused. He probably won't be chasing whales. He broke his right leg himself while boarding the plane. Understood. One by one I moved the old mansion's staff elsewhere. The butler returned to my side. They were Vance people, had always despised Victor. When the final shares were transferred, Victor threw a monumental tantrum, but it was futile. I'm not my mother, letting him live was already the limit. After that birthday I never saw him again. Taylor was cared for. I kindly told him Briar's ending. They say he smashed every piece of furniture in the drawing room, cursed the walls down, then wept. He called me a beast, said if my mother were alive he would never have ended like this. I once suspected he had caused her death, but it wasn't true. Mom died of stomach cancer. She didn't want Victor to see her ravaged by chemo, so she flew abroad to wait for death alone. She said she had hurt too many people. That was her karma. Her ashes reached Victor a month after Briar left. The old man suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. I didn't visit. The entanglements of the older generation have nothing to do with me. I'm not my mother. I don't believe in karma, and I'll never be blinded by love. I'll live flamboyantly, spectacularly, forever. Thanks for listening to today's story. Out of 10, what score would you give? If you liked this video, please like and share with friends. We look forward to your comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.
At a friend's birthday party, Adrian brought the little plaything he kept his. The girl looked at me, voice bright and artless. Adrian says Lily's American coffee is unbeatable. May I have the honor today? Adrian lifted his chin at me. Well, go make it. I stood up and walked out of the banquet hall. I never went back. Before we go further, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. The friend's birthday party was being held at his own villa. Originally, Adrian had told me that after work he would pick me up and we'd go together. But by evening he called and said the driver would take me instead. He didn't explain the change of plan, and I didn't ask. That was how we always were. He never had to account to me. Yet the moment I stepped into the banquet hall, I felt the discreet stares from every side. Curious, gossipy, pitying. Soon I knew why. I saw Adrian talking with the host, with a pretty girl clinging to his arm. A sharp pain shot through me, spreading until every nerve ached. Only then did I understand why he had broken our arrangement. He hadn't come for me because he was bringing someone else. I couldn't fathom why, if he wanted his at his side, he still insisted I show up. Did he have to humiliate me in public? I stood frozen. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Adrian turned. When he saw me, no flicker of guilt crossed his face. He greeted me as casually as ever and gave a small nod. You're here. The host beside him turned crimson. Even his smile looked twisted. Mrs. Sterling, come in, sit anywhere, make yourself at home. The girl glued to Adrian batted her eyes at me, as if a light bulb had clicked on. She was truly lovely, young, fresh, her every word bubbling with innocence. Adrian says Lily's American coffee is unbeatable. May I have the honor today? My heart clenched, nails bit into my palm. Adrian, expressionless, asked the host, You have a machine? The host's breathing quickened. He darted a glance at me, wiped sweat from his temple, and forced out, Yes, in the butler's pantry off to the side. Adrian flicked his chin at me again. Well, go make it. In an instant the noisy hall fell deathly quiet. Everyone stared from the corners of their eyes. Swallowing the humiliation, I looked straight at Adrian. His own eyes laughed back. I paused, then turned toward the side corridor. Make it quick, Adrian added. I said nothing and didn't slow my stride. I did not go to the pantry to brew coffee. I'd visited this villa once with Adrian. I knew the layout. I walked through the pantry, opened the back door, and stepped into the back garden. Following a winding path, I slipped out the garden gate. The driver who had dropped me off was already gone. I ordered a rideshare. When the driver accepted, he called me. He said he'd been inside Willowbrook before. Outside cars weren't allowed past the gate, so could I meet him at the main entrance? I said yes. The enclave was enormous. In stilettos my feet ached after only minutes. I kicked off the shoes, carried them, and walked barefoot. Small stones bit my soles with every step, but the pain felt light, liberating. I even broke into a run. The scenery slid past like fragments of memory falling away. I could almost feel the shackles loosening, feel myself growing lighter. By the time I reached the gate, I was barefoot, hair disheveled, a wreck. Yet when I spotted the waiting headlights, I smiled. Their glare was blinding, yet it scattered the storm clouds that had ringed me for years. In the thick night, I suddenly saw everything clearly. I'd barely walked into our house when Adrian rang. You've been at 1 cup of coffee for how long? I never agreed to make it. I answered calmly. And I'm home. Adrian laughed in anger. Lily, growing a backbone? I hung up. Back in the bedroom, I began to pack. The Sterling mansion had dozens of rooms, but the space that was mine amounted to half a bed and 1 wardrobe. Apart from the ball gowns Adrian had picked out for functions, my own clothes were few. In little over an hour, 2 suitcases, 1 large, 1 small, held everything. That night Adrian didn't return or call again. The next morning was Sunday, the day I'm allowed to see Theo. I waited in the downstairs sitting room. 9 o'clock came and went. Margaret still hadn't brought him. I rang the main house. The housekeeper hemmed and hawed. Mr. Sterling came early and said he was taking Young to the amusement park. I hung up with a bitter smile. Adrian was punishing me for last night's rebellion. He always knew which nerve to pinch. Theo, delivered by emergency C-section, was the center of my world. I was permitted only 1 day a week, and I cherished it. The smallest defiance from me, though, and Adrian withheld the child until I apologized. I drew a long breath, braced myself, and called Adrian. He rejected the call after 2 rings. When I tried again, his phone was off. On a desperate whim, I dialed Theo's smartwatch. It connected. "Hi, Mommy." The small voice lit my heart. "Sweetheart, when are you coming home?" "Mommy's at Grandma's house waiting."
No.
"I'm riding the carousel," he refused flatly. Softly, I coaxed. "But we haven't seen each other in a week. Don't you miss me?" "Nope," came without a pause. "That's okay, play first." "Mommy will wait." "Not going home. Daddy says we're sleeping in a camping tent tonight to watch fireflies." He hung up in excitement. I sighed, picked up my suitcases, and left. I had hoped to hold Theo once before I walked away, yet it seemed the boy wanted nothing to do with me. Perhaps a thin thread truly binds mother and son in our case. Now nothing and no one at the Sterling estate held me back. Good. I could leave without a glance behind. To outsiders, I am Adrian's lawfully wedded wife. We had a grand wedding, but only the Sterlings and I know that Dylan, we never signed a marriage certificate. When Eleanor lay gravely ill, she worried about the granddaughter still in college. She used the old favor her late husband had earned from the Sterling patriarch and demanded the eldest grandson marry me. Fearing scandal, old Mr. Sterling agreed. To prevent them from reneging, Eleanor insisted the wedding be held the moment I graduated. I told her I could manage alone, but she feared dying and leaving me utterly without family. She clung to the idea of marrying me into the Sterlings. Nothing I said could dissuade her. "Lily, unless I see you settled, I can't close my eyes in peace." I yielded. The Sterlings, of course, looked down on me. Before the ceremony, Adrian's mother, my future Margaret, summoned me privately. She set one condition. Only after I gave birth to a son would she hand over the marriage certificate. I thought it over and agreed. At the time, I saw the union as mere paperwork for Eleanor's sake. Skipping the certificate even seemed simpler. "Best not mention this to your grandmother. She's too fragile for shocks," Margaret warned. I assumed it would be a marriage in name only. Once Eleanor passed, I would leave. What I hadn't foreseen was falling in love with Adrian. During the first year, he treated me with real tenderness. Fresh out of college and job hunting, I was installed in the CEO's office at Sterling Group. Each morning he drove me to work. Each evening he waited so we could leave together, hand in hand. The staff joked I must have saved the galaxy in a past life to marry Prince Charming himself. Eleanor's hospital arrangements were handled by Adrian down to the smallest detail. Once, when she was rushed to the ICU, he stayed up all night with me, studying my panic. Add to that his razor-sharp command in the boardroom. People admire power, and daily proximity to such excellence became its own enchantment. The moment the test stick showed 2 lines, I was ecstatic. I ran to Adrian with the news. The joy on his face was unmistakable, but the next second he demanded that I quit my job and stay home to focus on the pregnancy. I had always been gentle, useless at arguing or pushing back. Add to that the admiration I felt for him, and I agreed, without thinking. "By the way, Adrian, when are we going to collect our marriage certificate?" "The baby will need a birth certificate," I asked, looking up at him. He stared at me for several seconds, expressionless. After a long pause, he said flatly, "We'll see." Watching him walk away, a wave of dread washed over me. Something felt off, but I couldn't name it. My instincts are rarely wrong. Throughout the pregnancy, Adrian grew colder and colder. In the final trimester, he often stayed out all night. When I went into labor, I struggled for an entire night in the hospital. He showed up only at dawn, moments before Theo arrived. The day I finished my confinement, Eleanor died. I always felt she'd clung to life until she saw the baby born, certain my future was secured. Before she let go, I was inconsolable. The difficult delivery had drained me. I was weak and broken. Margaret seized on my condition, plucking the baby from my arms with the excuse that I was too frail to care for him. I wept and begged Adrian to bring our son back. He only replied coldly that I should Morgan first. At the time my heart was ashes. I thought about leaving, but I couldn't abandon the child. He was the life I had nearly died to bring into the world. Sundays became the one day I lived for, The day I could see him. Looking at his soft little face and watery eyes gave me a happiness big enough to drown every dark thought. For his sake, I again asked Adrian for a marriage certificate. He looked down at me with contempt and sneered, "So much for your pride. You're exactly like your social climbing Eleanor." I clenched my fists, shaking with anger. "What are you implying?" "I, Adrian, have never let anyone force my hand. When your Eleanor trapped me into repaying a debt with marriage, I swore you'd all regret it." I stared at him in despair. So everything before was a lie. All those tender gestures, those affectionate glances, were they fake? Adrian curled his lips. "What do you think?" After I walked out of the Sterling estate, I didn't know where to go. I had no family left in this world. Just as Eleanor had feared, I was completely alone. Yet it didn't feel so terrible. I wasn't lonely or frightened. I could be fine by myself. Lacking a destination, I simply stopped thinking about it. I checked into a hotel, watched TV, scrolled my phone, ate, slept. No more getting up at dawn to grind Adrian's coffee. No more bracing for Margaret's random calls and invented scoldings. No more devouring parenting guides I was never allowed to apply. I could lie in bed all day, mind blank, thinking nothing at all. That afternoon, bored, I switched on the TV and happened upon a series shot in Dali. The scenery was impossibly beautiful, and it pulled me in. I leapt off the bed and booked the first flight to Yunnan the next morning. While I waited at the airport, my phone rang. It was Estate. "Mrs. Sterling, I'll bring Young over shortly. Please be home." Only then did I realize it was Quinn again. A whole week had slipped by in the hotel, and apparently no one at the estate had noticed I hadn't come home. When the gate announcement called my flight, I blurted, "Don't bother, I'm not home," and hung up. The moment the plane took off, the phone rang again. Theo piped up, shrill and furious. "Bad mommy. If you won't see me, I don't want you either. Daddy says you can't come home. Humph." Before I could answer, he hung up. I stared at the screen and gave a helpless laugh. All these years I'd forced myself to stay at the Sterling estate for Theo's sake, bending to Adrian, tiptoeing around him. A single frown from him had been enough to make me panic that he'd cut my visits. Like every self-deluding mother, I'd wanted to keep the family intact for my child. The self-righteous devotion was ridiculous, because the child didn't need it. Theo was raised in the estate. I saw him only on Sundays. No matter how hard I tried each visit, I felt him slipping further away. He felt like a chore he had to finish. By mid-afternoon, he fussed to go home. I had to admit, Theo didn't need a mother. He didn't even like me. So I would oblige him. From now on, I wouldn't trouble him with my presence. Dolly was lovelier than on television. I rented a room in a guest house, strolled the streets daily, soaked in the views, sampled the food. Pure contentment. The clean air felt as if it could scour a person spotless. For the first time, I sat down and really thought about my life and my future. Up to now, I had been passive. I had passively accepted my parents' deaths, passively obeyed Eleanor, passively stayed for the child. It seemed I had never once taken the initiative for myself. From now on, I decided I would live for me. Leaning on the guest house windowsill, staring at the flawless blue sky, I tried to remember what I actually wanted. Once upon a time, I must have had dreams. Nothing grand. I had never been ambitious, never chased riches. I only wanted an ordinary little life of my own. Back in college, I dreamed of opening my own bookshop, a cozy place where like-minded people could linger. Profit had never mattered, and now money wasn't a problem. Eleanor had left me a small legacy. After she died, I sold her capital apartment, tiny, but still worth a tidy sum. It sat untouched in my account. At the wedding, the Sterlings had handed over a $10 million dowry and several sets of jewelry, likewise untouched. Each month, Adrian transferred a monthly allowance of $300,000. My expenses rarely topped $20,000. Between the estate and the housekeeper, everything Theo or the household needed was already provided. My only real outlay had been toys and gifts for Theo. When Adrian's cousin learned the amount of my allowance, she mocked, "So that's all my brother pays to humiliate you? No wonder he married you off for a lousy $10 million. To them, a monthly allowance of $300,000 was an insult. A $10 million dowry was pocket change. Perhaps I simply didn't belong in their world. Their daughters and wives dropped a few $100,000 on a handbag or a spa weekend without blinking. Wedding gifts involved office towers, shops, real estate, shares. Next to those, 10 million did look paltry. My habits struck them as laughably provincial. I didn't care. I'd stayed only for the child, not to join their club. What I had might be small change to them, but with my wants it could last a lifetime. I finally had the courage to fulfill my wish, my own bookshop. Before leaving Dolly, I rang Adrian. He picked up on the final ring, just before voicemail. Ready to admit you were wrong? Before I could speak, he went on. You've gone too far this time. As punishment, no visits with Theo for 3 months. Adrian, I cut in, we never actually collected our marriage certificate. He gave a soft laugh, clearly in a good mood. Still desperate for that piece of paper? Not impossible, but not now. You misbehaved, so I'm not considering it. Bella is still upset. Come back and apologize, maybe I'll. I was still wondering who Bella was. Oh, right, the girl I'd been ordered to make coffee for. Adrian's his. Are you listening? He snapped when I stayed silent. I spoke quietly. Since there's no certificate, we can separate without divorce papers. His voice froze. After a long pause, he demanded, What do you mean? Adrian, we're finished. Do you have any idea what you're saying? Yes. Let's not meet again. Keep the $10 million dowry. Call it compensation for giving birth to Theo. Fine, great. He sounded half-crazed with anger. Don't ever dream of seeing Theo again. I gave a weak smile at the dead screen. The child I'd nearly died to deliver had become his favorite weapon against me. For my child's sake, I compromised again and again, swallowing every injustice. Just as he'd wanted, the boy had grown distant from me. He didn't love his mother in the least. That, more than anything, let me walk away without looking back. I returned to a small county seat in the South. It was the place my parents and I had lived when I was small. Before Mom passed, the 3 of us had been happy there. Mom had grown up in Capital, and when she insisted on marrying South, Eleanor had resisted at first. But Dad's character won her over, and in the end Eleanor entrusted her daughter to him. Mom used to say that, though she'd been raised in Capital, she loathed the dry air. She loved this southern town, warm, humid, comfortable in every season. I guess I really am her daughter. I feel exactly the same. Even after I moved to Capital and lived there for years, I never adjusted. Deep down, the town where I was born is the one I love. When I needed somewhere to start over, it was the first place that came to mind. The house of my childhood had long since been sold. I hunted for weeks before I chose a courtyard house in the old town quarter. A front room faced the street. It had once been a shop. I turned it into the bookshop. Behind the shop, I remodeled the remaining rooms into my own living space. Living room, bedroom, kitchen, dining nook, bathroom, everything I needed. In the little yard, I planted every flower and herb I could find. When the work was done, the place looked just the way I'd imagined. On the sunniest day I could find, I moved in and held a modest opening ceremony for the bookshop. As I'd expected, business was quiet. Now and then a neighborhood student drifted in to browse. Often the place was deserted. That suited me perfectly. In the hush I could sit behind the counter and work on my novel. I'd loved writing since college. My short stories had appeared in small magazines from time to time. Once I even serialized a novella online. The response was good, I gained a following, and the royalty check was fat enough to surprise me. Back then my plan had been simple. Land a job at a magazine or publishing house after graduation, and write on the side. But the day I received my diploma, Adrian summoned me into his company. Marriage and motherhood followed, and writing slipped from my hands. Now I mean to coax the habit back, sentence by sentence. Doing what I love, living gently. That is the life I'm arranging for myself. One afternoon I was typing away while a sudden summer storm erupted. Rain cracked against the window panes. Within minutes a sheet of water crept across the threshold. A tall young man on a shared bicycle skidded to the curb, sprang off, and sprinted toward the door, cradling something against his chest. "Excuse me, could I shelter here for a minute?" he called from under the eaves, wiping the object with his palm. "Come inside," I answered, smiling. "Better not, I'm soaked. I'll ruin your floor." He lifted his head, brushing rain from his brow, and froze when he saw me. I took in the face, rough-hewn, sun-browned, straight black eyebrows over bright eyes, and thought, handsome, unquestionably. A few seconds ticked by before he found his voice. Lily, when did you come back? Do we know each other? I asked, startled. I was certain I'd never met this tall, vivid stranger. He grinned, teeth white against the rain. I'm Logan. Logan? I searched my memory and came up empty. 17 years ago, the mall fire downtown, your father carried me out. Later The words yanked me backward in time. Before I turned 10, my world had been perfect. Mom and Dad adored each other and doted on me. Then, overnight, it shattered. Dad was a firefighter. A blaze fire incident erupted in the city center mall, and his crew rushed in. Every shopper survived. My father and one other firefighter did not. We buried Dad, and within weeks Mom, riding her scooter in a daze of grief, was struck by a truck and killed on the spot. In the space of a month, I was an orphan. Eleanor brought me to Capitol. A short while later, Grandpa died too. I convinced myself I was cursed, a living beacon of bad luck. First Mom and Dad, then Grandpa. Self-loathing took root. I became timid, withdrawn, bleak. Eleanor noticed, took me to a therapist, but the rot had already set. I'm sorry, Logan said, pulling me back. If he hadn't gone back for us, Mr. Sterling. It's all right, I said, and meant it. He was doing his job. Once I had raged in secret. Why did you save strangers and leave us? Couldn't you love us enough to stay? I blamed him for Mom's death by heartbreak. Years had to pass before I understood. That unflinching sense of duty was exactly why Mom had married him. He wore his uniform like a second skin, spoke of his work with shining pride. I stopped blaming him. I began to feel proud myself. Here. Does this look familiar? Logan lifted a small ceramic flower pot. I took it, astonished. Mine? Memory flooded back. Dad had taken me to a paint-your-own pottery studio when I was 7. On the base I'd scratched the crooked letters LILY. I'd planted a cactus inside it. If Logan hadn't appeared, the pot would have stayed forgotten forever. How did you get this? I asked, tracing the rim. He smiled, a little shy. After you moved away, I went to your old house. The story spilled out. Once he'd regained consciousness in the hospital, he'd begged his parents to track down the firefighter who'd saved him. They arrived at the station with a commendation banner only to learn the man had died minutes after the rescue. When they heard that the firefighter's widow had died soon after, leaving a 10-year-old girl, they decided to adopt her. They painted a bedroom pink and buttery yellow, ready for the little sister Logan had always wanted. But Eleanor had whisked me away before they could find me. Heartbroken, Logan had bicycled to my empty house and cried on the stoop. Beside the door, he spotted the neglected pot with its spiny occupant and the name on the bottom. He took it home. I'd never kept a plant before. I watered that cactus every single day, and it still died within a week. I burst out laughing. Let me guess, you drowned it? How did you know? He laughed with me. Later I learned cacti hate daily drinks. I did the exact same thing. Mine lived 51 days. My personal record. 51 days? Impressive. We were both still laughing when I asked, why cart it around today? He tilted the pot. A hairline crack on the base had been mended with gold lacquer. My cat knocked it off the shelf. I finally found a restorer. It's only a chipped flower pot, I teased. Let it go. He cradled it gently. Not a chance. It's worth keeping. After that, Logan became a fixture. He hurried to the bookshop straight from the station, fussed over customers, swept the floor, restocked shelves. He'd swing through the door calling, "Okay, novelist, your public is in my hands. Go right." When I learned he'd become a firefighter, I stared. After that day in the mall, it was the only thing I wanted. I'm lucky. I got my wish. The pride in his voice reminded me of Dad. Congratulations, I said, and felt the word glow inside me. After we grew close, Logan finally asked, cautiously, how I'd ended up back in my hometown. He scratched his head. Actually, I saw you once before, and I already knew you were married. I went to college in Capitol. After graduation, I flew back for a classmate's wedding. I ran into you at the mall. I didn't know what you looked like. I just heard someone beside you call you Lily as we passed. That name was burned into me. I whipped around, and there you were. I wasn't sure at first, so I asked around on the sly and found out you were my benefactor's daughter. By then you were about to get married. Your wedding was huge. I sneaked in and watched, You were smiling so sweetly. Lily, what happened? Why did you come home alone to settle? His voice was gentle, as though one careless word might cut me, and the concern on his face was real. If you'd rather not talk about it, that's okay. I'm divorced. I kept my tone level. Technically, we broke up. We had a child, but we never filed the marriage certificate. For years, I'd swallowed every feeling alone, burying every secret. I thought I'd forgotten how to share. Yet in front of someone who truly cared, I couldn't stop talking. I told the whole story, slowly, from beginning to end. My voice stayed calm. I even managed to laugh at myself. But Logan cried. I stared, half amused. Why are you crying? They actually hurt you like that. Another tear slid down. Lily, you've suffered. In his eyes I saw an emotion I hadn't met in ages. The same one that used to shine in Mom's and in Eleanor's eyes. Heartache. He was aching for me. Cameron. I felt cherished again. My heart warmed. There are feelings grown-ups don't have to name. I started accepting Logan's quiet care. Being with him was easy. There was no pressure, no resistance. He studied the smallest things and guessed my habits better than I knew them myself. Once we went to a night market for grilled skewers. I never touched the squid, so he learned I don't eat it. After that, whenever we dined out, he never ordered anything with squid. When I asked for 30% sugar in my bubble tea once, he memorized it. Every cup he brought me after was 30% sweet. He looked rough, but inside, he was silk. Like a mug of warm water that soaks in so quietly you don't notice you're already soft and steeped. Time breeds reliance. One evening, when Logan should have been off shift, he didn't show at the bookshop. An hour passed, then another. Uneasy, I dropped my pride and dialed. No answer. Panic flickered. I scrolled the local breaking news feed. Blaze fire incident at a West Side factory. I hailed a cab and raced over. By the time I arrived, the flames were out. I scanned the soot-streaked firefighters walking out. No Logan. My heart hammered. My hands shook. 17 years ago, I'd watched Dad walk away forever. I shook my head, whispering, "No, not again." Then a familiar figure stepped in front of me. "Lily, what are you doing here?" Every emotion burst its dam. I threw myself against his coat, sobbing. "You scared me to death." "Logan, I thought something happened, Wah." "Hey, easy, I'm right here, safe and sound." He stroked my back while he spoke. When the tears slowed, he lifted my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "From the way you just looked, can I guess that you care a lot?" I didn't hesitate.
Yes.
"I care so much it hurts when you're late." "Lily, let's be together." His eyes glittered like city lights on water. Okay. After that roller coaster, I knew nothing mattered more than this moment. I refused to overthink. For once, I let my heart drive. 3 months later, we picked up our marriage certificate. Outside the courthouse, Logan hugged me so hard my feet left the ground. "Lily, don't be afraid. From now on, you have a home. I'm your family, I'll never leave." Tears slipped free. He had always understood. The dread, the craving for belonging, the jagged piece I thought I'd lost. Back home, he cooked dinner, steak and red wine. "Fancy," I teased. "Hello. Marriage license day deserves champagne-level food." He sat across from me. "Mom's still traveling, but I called. They're thrilled and already planning the wedding. No way they'll let you feel shortchanged. These last 2 years I saved, plus a boost from Mom, and I bought a little place. The one I showed you, small, but paid off, no mortgage hanging over us. I want to start renovations this month. Whatever style you like, just say." I laughed. "Let's eat first. We can blueprint later." "Nope." He turned mock serious. "As of today, we're legal. Full disclosure time." He pulled a card from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. "My paycheck debit card." I shook my head fast. "Keep it. How will you buy gas or coffee? You give me an allowance. I like being managed by you." While we tussled over the plastic, the doorbell rang. I bounced up and opened it, then froze. "Mommy." Theo wrapped his arms around my legs, face tilted up. I stroked his hair. "What are you two doing here?" Adrian stepped past me without answering. Spotting Logan at the table, his face darkened. "Who's he?" Before I could speak, he swept his gaze around the room. "You left me to live in this shoebox." I looked around. What was wrong with it? Bright, cozy, plenty of space. Compared to the Sterling estate, Sure, it wasn't a manor, but it felt like home. It's perfect. Better than the Sterling estate, I said flatly. Save the bravado, Adrian sneered. With me you had housekeepers waiting on you, every luxury. Now you're pretending this hovel suits you? I humiliated you for another woman. You sulked, fair enough. I've dealt with Bella and come personally. Don't push your luck. This is your last chance. I know you always wanted a legal marriage. No, thanks. I cut him off, done with his arrogance. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, and I'm already married. Don't come back. Adrian's mask cracked, his pupils dilated. What did you say? Logan walked over and took my hand, calm as still water. Sir, today is our wedding day. I'll overlook your nonsense, but leave our house now. A flicker of confusion crossed Adrian's face. What wedding day? We filed our license this morning. We're husband and wife. Go back to Capital. Adrian, I'm never returning. He stood dumb a moment. This joke isn't funny. It's no joke. I'm married. Theo suddenly lunged and hugged my knees, eyes brimming. Mommy, don't you want me anymore? I knelt, keeping my voice soft. Theo, Mommy still loves you even if I don't live with you. We can video call whenever you like, and you can visit during vacations. We'd never been close. He'd even hurled hurtful words once. But I couldn't blame him. Only 3, raised by Margaret, seeing me once a week. How could we bond? Perhaps we simply had shallow mother-son fate. He nodded, not quite understanding. The day before my wedding to Logan, Adrian showed up again. He waited outside the bookshop, face storm dark. We need to talk. Logan rose from the counter. I'll take a walk, you two talk. When Logan stepped outside, Adrian turned to me. Fine, you win. Divorce him, and we'll file tomorrow. Are you out of your mind? So, you married another man just to force me to come crawling back? Do you honestly think you're that irresistible? Adrian laughed softly. Then why pick that guy? He doesn't even come close to me. Lily, you love me. I can still see it in your eyes. I looked quietly at the man so sure of himself, and after a long moment, I suddenly smiled. He had known all along that I loved him, yet because he'd felt coerced into marriage, he'd nursed that resentment and tortured me for balance. Look into my eyes now, do you still see love? He froze. Adrian, I admit I once loved you. Later, I realized you aren't worth loving. The only reason I stayed at the Sterling estate was for Theo, otherwise I'd have left long ago. Something in his gaze cracked, clear pain flashing through. Impossible. You're trying to punish me, right? I know I hurt you these past years. I'm sorry. Come back, and I'll make it up to you. I haven't been completely indifferent to you. I laughed out loud. You're such a coward, Adrian. Is admitting you like me that hard? Is liking someone like me so shameful? If you despise me, why humiliate yourself by staying? That's not what I meant. His voice carried urgency. Even if you admitted you loved me, I still wouldn't go. Because the person I love now isn't you. His head snapped up, eyes rimmed red. How could you like him? I don't believe it. True, in many ways he can't match you. But he's gentle, kind, patient, and he understands me. He has plenty of strengths. Most important, as my partner, he sees only me. Adrian fell silent again. Just when I thought he would leave, he spoke hoarsely. What if I could change? I could make you my whole world. Never look at another woman. I shook my head firmly. My feelings for you have been worn away these past years. Lily, think of Theo. Don't you want our child to have a complete family? When we get back, I'll bring Theo home. The 3 of us living together, all right? By the end, his voice trembled. I gave a soft laugh. So Theo could be brought back, after all. All these years, Adrian had known how desperately I missed Theo, how many times I'd begged to bring him home, and each time he'd cruelly refused. Now he said we could be a family. How ridiculous. I lifted my head, gaze steady. From the day Theo was born, you've used him to control me. From now on, he'll never again be leverage against me, because I've learned to love myself. From today on, I put myself first. No one will hurt me again. Adrian left in defeat. Logan rushed in, panic in his steps, and hugged me hard. I squirmed. Your arms are squeezing me. He loosened them, but didn't let go. Sorry, Lily. I was terrified. Of what? That you'd leave with him. that you wouldn't want me anymore. I cradled his face and smiled. Silly, I'm your wife. How could I go with anyone else? But you haven't told me you low. Sure. I cut him off. What's tomorrow? Our wedding. Then don't you want to hear the confession during the ceremony? He nodded vigorously. Right. He slapped his forehead. I have to run through the order with the officiant. It's our big day. Nothing can go wrong. Oh no, my memory's awful. What if I blank out tomorrow? Suddenly anxious, he paced the room. I can't stay. I'll prep now. Pull an all-nighter if I have to. He dashed outside, then turned back, beaming. Lily, wait for me to come get you tomorrow. Adrian's point of view. I never imagined that a single cup of coffee would make Lily walk out of my life and never come back. At first I thought she was throwing a tantrum. She had always been docile around me. That night, she stormed out of the banquet, and I was furious. Riley Quinn, I took Theo out for the weekend. Punishment for her defiance. But she didn't return for an entire week. On the next Sunday, the day Theo comes home, she still refused to come back. I was truly angry. Before, whenever we argued, she was the one to give in. I wanted to see how long she could last this time. The phone rang, her name on the screen. I almost answered at once. But I refused to seem eager, waiting until the final ring. All I wanted was to ask where she was, how she was. Instead I said, "Realize your mistake yet?" I even warned that as punishment, she couldn't see Theo for 3 months. Just talk. She'd been gone too long. I couldn't let her think running away was an option. She had to pay a price, so she wouldn't dare leave again. When she said, "We never filed a marriage certificate," I smirked. So this drama was just to get that paper. It was bound to happen. I only stalled to toy with her. Maybe Lily had spoiled me. I was used to her yielding, to standing above her. I longed for her return, yet insisted she apologize to Bella. When I heard her cool voice say, "Let's break up," my head buzzed. I couldn't believe my ears. I kept telling myself she was speaking in anger. After all, Theo was with me. How could she bear to leave? I knew how much she adored our child. Fine, I thought, let her cool off. Once she tasted hardship, she'd remember the sterling perks. These years I'd kept her in luxury. She wouldn't survive rough living. But months passed without a word. She never even called Theo. Panic set in. I had investigators track her. When the assistant forwarded her address, I grabbed Theo and flew there. I didn't bother reading the rest of the report. Learning she'd married felt like a sledgehammer to the skull. I couldn't accept that she had wed someone else. Had she discarded me and Theo? The day before her wedding, I went to her for one last try. Yet she said she no longer loved me. From her eyes, I saw she truly had let go. I had lost her forever. On her wedding day, I watched from afar. She took the mic and declared to her groom, "I love you." Jealousy clawed at me. She had never said those words to me. Her smile was radiant, bliss shining in her gaze. And it broke my heart. Her happiness no longer came from me. Sometimes I wonder when I fell for Lily. Maybe the instant we met. We were seated at the same table for dinner. She smiled timidly, eyes as innocent as a doe's. So lovely it sparked desire, the urge to possess. Only later did it dawn on me. I hadn't been entirely forced into marrying her. No one could truly compel me if I refused. I said yes because deep down I already accepted her. But I couldn't see it then. I raged that my marriage was manipulated, turned into repayment of a debt. Lily, naive, never loved, was easy prey. After the wedding, I showered her with care, deliberately gentle. Sure enough, admiration and infatuation soon glowed in her eyes. Once she was pregnant, I began to pull away. That was my revenge. No one had ever forced my hand, until her grandmother. So I retaliated against her. After Theo was born and she again brought up the certificate, I mocked her and Eleanor. When mother took Theo, I didn't object. Back then, she truly couldn't cope. Just out of delivery, Eleanor gone. She was thin as paper, fragile. I thought rest would help Morgan. Yet as her gaze toward me cooled, panic stirred. I couldn't stand her eyes, no longer fixed on me in adoration. I wanted to seize her face, force her to look. Riley, I did something foolish. I began using Theo as leverage. Whenever she disobeyed, I barred her from seeing him. Predictably, she turned docile again. Even when I dated other women, she stayed silent. Still, I felt hollow. She became a doll, obedient, unmoved. I longed for some emotion, anger, anything. I escalated, trying to provoke her. Our marriage spiraled into that vicious cycle, and I was powerless to stop it. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed it, please like and share. We look forward to your comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales.
See you next time.